going to call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order for the 7th of March. If the Secretary will please call the roll.
Nancy Pease, Jim Frederick, Connie Yoshimura, here. Arthur Isham,
Here.
Bruce Felt,
Here.
Stacy Dean,
Here.
Terry Park,
Here.
Dana Prude, Rich Wilson.
Here. Thank you. Before we get started, I just want to remind members of the commission that tonight we're going to get quizzed after the meeting on the operation of the Granicus system, which is this touch screen thing that's in front of us here. And so if you're having any problems when you push something and it doesn't react or something of that nature, just make a note of it. And the IT people are going to ask us if we have any problems with it, because the assembly apparently has had some problems. So I don't know, maybe we don't move as fast as the assembly and it reacts to us okay. But anyway, just keep your eye out on if there's any problems with the Granicus system. Okay, we'll now move on to the minutes. Accept a positive motion. Go ahead. Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Yoshimura for the, you go ahead.
The Monday, I move to approve the June 7th. Sorry, I move to approve the June 7th, 2010 minutes.
And what about the February 7th?
I actually have a correction for the February 7th minutes. Under C1, Commissioner Yoshimura moved to postpone addendum G1, case 2010-135, to March 7th, 2011, at the request of the petitioners. That was at the request of an absent commissioner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Otherwise, I move for adoption.
Okay, and there's also some other corrections that have come forward. Ms. Secretary, please read those recommended.
I just have a couple of quick changes on the June 7th minutes on page 7 on the fifth bullet on the page. Insert the word lot so that it will read split lot zoning concerns. And on page 8 in the third paragraph, insert the word rezoning so that it will read, until the new case dealing with rezoning, just the portion zoned watershed.
Could you run that by me again? What?
Okay, page 8, third paragraph. Insert the word rezoning after new case dealing with. Page 8, third paragraph. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Case will.
With the new case. New rezoning case.
Okay.
I've got it marked.
Has everybody found that one? Okay, this is page 8. It starts, the large paragraph, it starts with, in response to Mr. Robinson.
What minutes?
This is the 7th, June 7th.
June 7th minutes. Page 8, third full paragraph, second line, insert rezoning after new case dealing with. It's a clarification.
Okay. Is that it?
And then on the February 7th minutes, on page 4, the bottom paragraph, change TCC to read Turnagain Community Council, and delete the quotes on that. There's several sentences in a row. Delete the quotes out of there. And that's it. I apologize. There were some last-minute changes.
All right.
Okay, are there any objection to these 2 minutes with the changes as indicated? Then they're approved as changed. Ms. Yoshimura, if you'd please take care of the disclosures.
Yes. Commissioner Wilson, do you have anything to disclose this evening?
No, I do not.
Okay. Mr. Parks?
None.
Commissioner Phelps?
No.
Commissioner Dean?
Yes. On case G2 for Legacy, that is Providence Real Estate, and I am a general contractor that does work occasionally for Providence Real Estate. I'm not going to be working on this particular project. It's much larger than we normally would take on.
Okay, thank you. It would appear to me that you then do not have any financial interest in this project? No? So does anyone on the commission object to having Ms. Dean participate in this case? Okay. Thank you. Mr. Pruz?
No.
Okay. Mr. Chairman?
I have none.
Okay. I have an item to disclose in regards to case 2010-076. I would like to disclose that I own 160 acres at the top of Potter Valley Road, and as a result of that and other projects that I'm involved in, I have a fairly extensive knowledge on matters relating to secondary egress issues. I do not have a financial interest in the case before us tonight.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you have knowledge about secondary access. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the annual election of officers. We just did some elections about 2 months ago to fill seats that were vacated, and so now this is the normal time of the year when we do our elections. So the floor is open. Mr. Phelps, you moving down there? Okay, push your button so we can. I push it. Let's see if it hit the request to speak, and let's see if it works.
I'm sorry, he didn't request for a motion.
Oh, okay, very good. Okay, Mr. Phelps, you made a motion, and why don't you go ahead and with your motion, please?
Actually, I don't think I did. I think Mr. Parks did. Yeah.
But Mr. Phelps came up, so can you want to clear it? Okay, who wants to make the motion?
Why don't you go ahead and do it, because I wasn't intending to.
Okay, very good. Mr. Parks.
I make a motion that we leave the folks that are set here, Mr. Isham and Ms. Ishimura.
Okay, there's a second from Mr. Phelps. Okay, is there any discussion? Is there any objection? Okay, that, I guess, Ms. Yoshimura and myself are your leaders for the next year, so thank you.
Assuming we're reappointed.
Yes, assuming we're reappointed, yes. And that's kind of strange that the way the system works is that you get reappointed in October, yet we have elections in January or February, so theoretically you could not be reappointed and you'd have to do exactly what happened when she and I moved to our current position. So, okay, let's go on to the consent agenda. Take a positive motion for approval. Mr. Parks?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, is that items 1A, B, C, and D?
That's correct.
It's been seconded by Ms. Dean. Is there any cases that wish to be pulled? Ms. Yoshimura?
I'd like to
Is there any other cases that wish to be pulled? Okay, is there any objection then to approving consent agenda items D1, A, B, and C? No objection, those items are approved. Ms. Yoshimura, please speak to D1D.
Well, I'm afraid that I wasn't very articulate when I made the findings, and so with permission of the commission, I would just like to add a few words to A3 under the findings. In the future, the school district should look carefully at additional funding for the vocational and technical education needs, as local employers have expressed concern that it is hard to find adequately trained staff, which contributes to a lack of growth for our local economy. Just a little more articulate than as it's currently worded.
Okay, do you have a copy of that for this?
I do.
Secretary? Just a second.
And to agree that that's okay? Well, all vice chairs have limited authority, you know. It's just really an honorary position.
Okay. Mr. Yoshimura, we were just checking to make sure that basically what you said here was contained in the minutes, and it appears that it's in the minutes, just in a little different format.
Yes.
So, okay, is that the only changes you wish to make to that one? So you want to make a motion now for?
Yes, I'll make a motion to make that change.
And also for approval?
Yes.
Okay, that's been seconded by Mr. Parks. Is there any objection to item 1D? No objection, that is approved with the changes as provided by Ms. Yoshimura. We'll now move on to our public hearings. First item on the agenda is case G1. And this is case 2001-076. Petitioner is Todd Jacobson, and it's a design study report for a public road, Mountain Air Drive. Go ahead and hear from staff on this, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Project Management and Engineering is requesting draft design study report approval of the Mountain Air Drive and Hillside Drive extension. The proposed extension will be designed as a collector road. This project was before the Commission on July 12, 2010. The Commission postponed a decision and requested a study for inclusion in the draft DSR of the intersection at Rabbit Creek Road and Mountain Air Drive. The enclosed draft DSR provides the results of the study and identifies the preferred realignment and intersection options. The project goal is to extend Mountaineer Drive south from its current terminus near Bear Valley Elementary School to the Shangri-La East Phase 2 development at the East 155th Avenue right-of-way. The extension of Mountaineer Drive or Hillside Drive has been identified in the Anchorage Bowl 2025 Long-Range Transportation Plan, the Official Streets and Highways Plan, and the Hillside Sub-Area Transportation Study as a necessary route for access and egress to the southeast portion of the Anchorage Hillside. The project design year is 2029. The length of the project is approximately 1/2 mile from Rabbit Creek Road to 155th Avenue. 3 alternatives were identified and analyzed. Alternative A would extend Mountaineer Drive south past Bear Valley Elementary School, jog east, bridge Little Rabbit Creek, and connect with the existing 155th Avenue right-of-way. Alternative B would follow the existing Mountaineer Drive right-of-way around Bear Valley Elementary School to the existing Hillside Drive right-of-way. It would then turn south and end at the existing 155th Avenue right-of-way. Alternative C would construct 149th Avenue between Mountaineer Drive and then extend Hillside Drive south to the existing 155th Avenue right-of-way. Recommended alternative. Based on the results of the analysis, Alternative A is the recommended alternative. The alternative requires the shortest amount of road construction, avoids impacts to area wetlands, and provides the most direct connection between Rabbit Creek Road and planned subdivisions south of Rabbit Creek. In regards to the Mountaineer Drive and Rabbit Creek Road intersection, 3 alternative routes were considered for connecting Mountaineer Drive with Rabbit Creek Road. The first was no build. The second was to increase the northernmost curve to meet design criteria, and the third one was to reroute to Sierra Way. The preferred connecting alignment is option 2, which is increasing the radius of the final curve. The option best addresses the project objectives at the lowest cost and with the least impact to the adjacent landowners. In addition to the 3 alternative connecting routes described above, there were 3 intersection options considered. Number 1 was no build, number 2 was construct turn lanes, and number 3 was to construct a roundabout. The preferred intersection option is the turn lanes. That's all I have.
Okay, is there any questions for staff? Okay, Mr. Parks.
I have a couple of questions about the design plan and how it was coming across. I was looking through the design standards for that particular location. It's on page 8.1 of the draft design study that was given to us at our last meeting. And you made the statement that it was a least expensive alternative. And that's alternative A versus alternative B. But it looks to me like it's cheaper to do B than A. And I'm not sure exactly how you could make that statement. Can you please comment to that?
I may be incorrect on this, Mr. Parks, but I think it may have to do with right-of-way acquisition as well, but I think the design consultants could better answer your question on this.
Well, it does have the right-of-way, and it says $282,000 in alternative A, and B is $124,000.
I think in that case it would be best addressed by the design consultants.
Okay.
Any further questions for staff? Okay, we'll go ahead and move into the public hearing portion of this then. Are the design consultants here?
Yes, they are.
Very good. Okay. Well, let me go ahead and read the rules on public hearings first, and then we'll go ahead and pepper you with questions. After the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the commission rules of procedures. In this case, the petitioner is the municipality, and they have given their presentation. Representative groups have 5 minutes. Those are people like community councils, PTAs. And individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the commission. An individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Planning and Zoning Commission takes. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after the Planning and Zoning Commission's final decision. Finally, any individual may request written findings from any commission decision within 7 days. So we'll go ahead and move on now. We have questions, and we'll have the design team up here. So, sir, if you could come forward and state your name for the record, please.
I'm Steve Carey. I work with USGH. We're the design consultant for the Mountain Air Drive project.
Okay. Now, do you guys have a presentation actually in addition to what staff gave us, or are you just here to answer questions?
Correct.
Just for questions. Okay. So, Mr. Parks, why don't you go ahead? I know you were on the docket.
Thank you. My question, I guess, is from the original plan, the Mountain Air Hillside plan, this plan that was given to us back in July, I think, when we first heard this. There was a chart in there that talks about cost alternative A and B, and I guess I'd like to have an explanation of if it was a cost issue, why A was chosen over B, and I've got a couple other questions for you also.
The cost estimate has been updated since that time. I believe the latest page 8-1 is dated January 2011. Is that the one you're looking at?
The one I've got is April 2010. Can you?
Well, what I have, I'll just read it off, and I can bring it up and show you. But alternative A, the total construction cost estimate is $5,088,000. Alternative B is $5,174,000. So they're fairly close. The one reason that should be considered as far as the difference in cost. There's 800 feet of road that needs to be constructed to get alternative B to the end of alternative A route, and that adds another $500,000 to $750,000 given the type of collector standard cross-section that we're going to be constructing.
Okay, so it is actually more expensive under the new design?
Yeah, alternative B is more.
Is that a 2011 building out? And my understanding is they don't have enough money to do that currently. Is that correct? They can't go that far, I guess is my comment.
My name is Todd Jacobson. I'm the project manager representing the municipality of Anchorage. Mm-hmm. And currently we have $4.5 million, and we have another $1.4 million grant request in to the state of Alaska for this 2011 session.
And my understanding is also none of that money is included to take care of the intersection at Hillside Drive?
That's correct. Well, the $1.4 million, that was requested to facilitate those improvements, or a portion thereof. They've changed since the grant request was made. So right now we're suspecting it may require a little more money.
More than the grant money?
More than the proposed $1.4 million.
Okay, but that money was proposed for the Hillside intersection?
Correct.
Okay. I have a couple more questions. These questions are, I guess, philosophical in nature, but I need to understand them a little bit. When I take a look at the alternative B, I see that it goes on the section line that really is right across from the Section 36, the parkland. And it connects on the Jamie Road, which would also add a connection into Clark's Road for an egress. I guess my question is, why wasn't that considered? It looks like to me that you have a lot more property on that section line to the tune of about probably, 600-700 acres. If you go down that line, it would be serviced by this road if it was extended, versus going directly across and only servicing that Section A and B and the Shangri-La. Can you give me why the public should pay for something that doesn't service the whole hillside area, doesn't provide another evacuation out of that area, versus going in kind of a dead-end street. Actually, when it goes in, it's only going to service that one piece. And there's no connectivity is my concern. It's not so much where the road goes. It doesn't connect with any other section lines.
Right. No, I think alternative B, when we originally were looking at that, the hope was to have access, provide an alternative access to Bear Valley as well. But we're very constrained to do anything at that location because of the environmental factors. And based on our understanding of the project area, we would not be able to continue east from that section line to go connect to provide that access to Bear Valley. In fact, we'd have to still do that circuitous route and go back to the alignment that we're proposing and then extending south. The work that's been done to date from the developer, he has a proposed access further south of these undevelopable wetlands that projects to the east. It basically aligns with the existing Sandpiper Drive.
Do you have an overhead that shows that so we can take a look at it so that everybody can? I'm fairly familiar with that piece, but I know that some of my commissioners are not.
Yeah, we do.
Figure out how to turn it on here. Might be fine.
We need a little help on this.
So if we can change the zoom on this thing. See if we can zoom out somehow.
That's about it. I'll try to speak loudly so you can hear. Actually, this should work. You can see north is to the right, and that's Mountain Air Estates to the right. And what that alignment right now lines up with our proposed development. In fact, we've been working with the developer to make sure our projects align together. And what I was mentioning was if we were to go the alternative B route, what we would have to do is our road would be over here, kind of where my finger is. It would be going to the east, then it would come down the section line easement, and then it would have to go back down 155th and tie into what we're proposing as our alignment, alternative A. Because there's no way you can, with the undevelopable wetlands in this area, there's no way that you can develop a road through that section line easement, that existing easement. And so what we're proposing on doing is making a more direct route going across the creek, tying in with the developer's proposed residential development, which extends south and ties into Sandpiper. Here's Sandpiper right here, going to the west. And you can see what they're proposing right now is a road
we
that...
can't see anything that you're pointing out. Is there
okay.
got a pointer?
Very difficult.
Use so many
Is that better?
arrows on that.
Okay. Here's Sandpiper right here. And this goes down to, ties into 162nd and then goes further to the west and ties into Golden View. And what this development does is it goes south and ties into Sandpiper, which extends to the east, and then this is the proposed access to the ultimate tie-in to that would find its way over to Bear Valley. And basically what this does is it circumvents all these undevelopable wetlands.
Are those Class A or Class B wetlands?
There's both, isn't there? One second, please. One of the things I'd point out is when the developer, and if he was here or his engineers here, my understanding is when they originally were trying to develop this property, they were trying to use that section line easement. And they've basically been through the same exercise that we have, and actually we learned a lot from them, where they worked with the municipality and the regulatory agencies to try to get a different alignment. And obviously what you see here in part of their plat is a result of a lot of work with these regulatory agencies. So
here's my major concern as I look at this plan the way it is today. There's no connectivity into Jamie. Jamie doesn't exist. About 1,500 linear feet of that road is not in. If you extended Jamie down and made a connection there, you would have another access for people to get in and out of that Bear Valley that currently only has one way in and one way out, and that's Clark's Road. It appears to me that if we're going to use public money, we ought to be thinking how it better service is the whole utilitarian piece of the hillside versus one particular subdivision that may have, 400 or 500 homes in it. We need to be taking like an egress out of there, out of Clark's Road, which you don't have now. The other thing that concerns me a bit is that we have on that section line that goes that complete way, you've got several developmental pieces of property along there to the tune of about 600 acres now that are going to have to be rerouted some other way. They're going to have to create a road to be able to service those. If you put it on that section line, then the fellow that's doing the subdivision work could come in and do his work to that road. With public money, we're building the road versus building one across and only servicing 500 homes. You could be servicing 1,100 to 1,200 homes. Not today, not tomorrow, but 20 years out. That's the concern I have. It looks like we're building a road into only a subdivision to be serviced of 500 homes versus looking at the total picture as we go over it. I believe the wetlands that you're looking at there are B wetlands, and I know that they can be built on. I think they can be built on. I don't know that property infinitum, but I do have some concerns that we're looking at building a road to only one subdivision. Would you like to comment to that? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that the wetlands are just one part of that, at least as far as where alternative B ends. We've also got the park, and we've literally got the creek there. So there's some issues just with beyond the wetlands themselves with how you get across or operate a road near that creek, and then, whether we want a road in the park. So, at that location, we can't go south because there's wetlands. And if we go east, we're going to go into a park and next to a creek. So, I don't know that a developer from the east can tie in literally at that point, as far north as where alternative B ends. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and the topography and going up.
Well, I guess I don't quite understand it because there is a right-of-way easement on Section 13 to the west. So you have the easement there already. You don't need to go on 36. And if Jamie Road was continued, it would be on private property. It would not be inside that parkland. And you have no access to the parkland now. And that would give you another opportunity to see that.
Yeah, I think we need to offer some more graphics for you. Jamie is going to tie in further south than the end of alternative B, and we've got, as you say, all those wetlands in there, and you can build in Class B wetlands, but the history of trying to get a permit by the developer of Shangri-La in that area it's not been a good situation. They're highly sensitized to the area because of some damage that was done by a developer previously, and so it's been an uphill battle from the standpoint of developing in those wetlands.
Let me make sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying that the difference between the A route and the B route, that I don't know how long it is, probably 1,200 feet, is all wetlands, and that's going to cause the issue?
No, what I'm saying, leaving alternative A aside, is that to come down the Hillside Drive alignment, if we go straight south, continue on that section line, we're going through just a huge wetland area. And if we go straight east from the end point of alternative B, we've got the creek and we've got the park.
What if you go straight south on that section line? You're saying that goes through wetlands? Maybe a map, if you had something that could show us, that'd be great.
Let me just kind of bring this up to show you.
So you can build on it. Well, we've got that copy. The problem is it doesn't show the connectivity above it. That's the only reason. I'm sorry. It's the one that was. It was the one that was given to us by email, and then in the package tonight. Right. I had it from the email.
It was the draft design report?
Right here.
Okay. Okay.
It's this one right here. Just can't help myself.
No, I haven't seen that. Well, I just want to point out, our project objective is to provide access to the 500, 600 acres of undeveloped property to the south. The pin that I have on this map right now indicates our alignment, essentially. And so I guess I would have to argue that, we're not addressing the undeveloped property. I think we're spot on it. And what's really difficult to see on this map from here is the wetlands and why the private developer, he has selected the route that he has. I can barely see it here, but it's the real light blue. I don't know if it's going to be worth me trying to point this out, but you can see on the developer's plat that he's going right between a couple of the mapped wetlands there, which is still going to provide an access to that area that you're concerned about up Bear Valley by extending Sandpiper.
Could I put this map up there? This is the one from the design study that we had. I guess that's the reason I'm so confused. If you just put that up there so we can take a look at it. It doesn't match with what we're talking about here. And I don't know which one's right or which one's wrong. There are wetlands on that piece. If you look at red, the red is the alternative B, and the yellow is alternative A. And the yellow in there is the wetlands that I see. And they're at the edge of wetlands, and if they're B, fairly easy to build on. Maybe you need a permit, maybe you don't. I don't know, but it looks like to me that it lines up. If you'll take a look at the right-hand side, there's that's where we have the road coming down the hill that connects in to the other part of the hillside. I'm not an engineer, I don't build roads, but it just looks that it would be better if we had access to Section 36, parkland, give access to Clark Road through Jamie Drive if it was ever extended at some point in time, and then allow that road to go down that section piece to be able to service the land to the east. That's my only point.
Mr. Pruse, did you have a question? I saw you on the... Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Correct. What would it do to it? I'm sorry, yeah. Right.
Going to Lot 7. And so I was just curious, Hillside Drive, the proposed Hillside Drive there, that it ties into, to the north of that?
Right.
What was the idea for that road going to the north? Was that eliminated, or?
Yeah, we don't foresee Hillside Drive being ever constructed. It's right through some very sensitive Class A wetlands and historic parks. So we don't foresee that ever being constructed. In fact, that's why our alternative C you see on the top of the sheet there is we deleted that as an option. So we have a curve there, though, however, because this is a collector road, and we're trying to get as long as a section of road as we can before we start having intersections, just so we can convey traffic more properly or more in conformance to what a collector road tries to do.
So alternative A goes through lots 1 and 2, and alternative route B goes through lot 7, and then a track, I can't really read it, it's kind of small, below to the south. Is that correct? So what's the net loss between the two alternatives as far as square feet?
Well, by our calculation, the two, for each alternative A and alternative B, the amount of right-of-way required is very close to each other in size.
And is it the same owner?
For which part?
For alternative A and B to get the right-of-way to those parcels?
We would need some additional right-of-way along that section line easement, too, on alternative B, so it would be a different owner. Everything south of the creek is a different owner than the lots you see north of there.
And then maybe I missed this. Alternative A, where it comes into 155th, what's going to happen to the east, where theoretically alternate B would tie into? What's going to happen there?
Likely nothing. And I guess the reason I say that, well, certainly the owner of that property could develop it and sell it as residential lots. We don't see it being cost-effective in any regard in continuing that 155th alignment eastwardly along that creek. The topography is relatively steep going into that creek. You got wetlands on both sides, and we don't ever see that road being able to be cost-effectively constructed, which is the principal reason why, rather than, that's why we're essentially avoiding that route.
Alternate route B.
With alternative B, correct.
So on just out of percentages, in your decision-making process, that where Route B intersects Hillside Drive and 155th and goes west or east-west, what percentage of your decision for recommending alternate A is that stretch of land there? Is that the highest weight based on your professional opinion, or is it the wetlands to the north of that intersection, or?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Cruz, I didn't get the first part of your question.
Well, you just told me that section would probably never be built
right.
Alternate B, that west section of alternate B, or that east-west section.
Right.
So, which confused me a little bit because we were talking about other parts of alternate B that had some issues with wetlands. So,
well,
I don't see wetlands up there on that part of the road.
Yeah, I probably misspoke. I mean, that section you see as alternative B, the red section on the bottom that goes east-west, I think that would probably certainly be developed ultimately by the developer. I mean, obviously he's going to be able to get lots on both sides of that. He's going to have some constraints to the north because of the creek, and he's going to have some constraints to the south because of the wetlands.
But in your opinion, it's too expensive for this route? Is that?
No, from my perspective, the cost estimates that we shared with Mr. Parks goes basically to that bottom right corner. And what Steve was trying to convey was for us to construct alternative B to where alternative A ends, we would still have to build that east-west section, which is another $500,000 to $750,000. And so I think one of the ways we've looked at this, we all recognize that alternative A costs more per lineal foot than alternative B does. It's a shorter road, and it's comparable cost. But what we believe is the project objective is to get to where ultimately there's going to be a north-south connector road that's going to address these 600 acres of undevelopable property. So our objective is to find a road that gets there the fastest, the shortest.
So where alternate A intersects 155th,
Right?
to the west is not built.
Correct. It's not built?
Is that not built?
It is not built.
It is not built. And how many feet is that till, what is your estimated cost to connect 155th to the next road?
Oh, geez, I do not know. No. Our objective is to get to the future development proposed to the south.
So I guess what I was kind of concerned, or not concerned about, but curious, is that section of Route B that goes to, I guess it would be going to the east of where Route A intersects 155th. What percentage of that build in the future of the total 155th would it be? In other words, when someone came in to build 155th to connect into either Route A or Route B, what percentage of that area that you said would be more, that's not included, or a little more money on the east-west Route B, what percentage of the total build of 155th would that be? If you just went to where it intersects 155th on Route B.
Is it about a fourth or fifth?
I mean, is it a big percentage, a small percentage of 155th, the total build?
I'd say small, on the small side.
So in reality, it isn't that big a difference then between Route A and Route B.
$500,000 to $750,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And I guess just it's more of in addition to the cost. I mean, one of the big factors for us is we're getting to where we believe we're supposed to go. So.
I'm sorry, what?
Well, we have a direct route. We don't have a circuitous route, and we want a safe, efficient collector road. We want something that provides access to the development to the south. Wasn't our objective to build a road that had a bunch of lots fronting it that was more like a local road.
Okay.
Mr. Parks?
I'd like to go further with the statement you just made. Was that under the design standards from I guess we have the working copy for the commission for the district, Hillside District Plan. Is that where you got your directions on where to put this road?
On where we need to tie into?
Yes.
Well, the grant language said we were supposed to tie into Shangri-La subdivision.
Okay, but it didn't say where in Shangri-La.
Correct. Did not say where.
So if you went down that section 36 line, you would actually hit the northwest corner of Shangri-La. You could at some point, assuming that you had enough money, but that could also work. Is that correct?
Northeast corner, not northwest.
Northeast. I'm sorry. I said northwest. I meant northeast. Okay. That's fine. Thank you.
I think if you have that, it's a figure 4.1 out of the Hillside District Plan, I believe the south of 155th, the primary road that's shown in that plan is, in fact, through Shangri-La where we're tying in.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you. You gentlemen, take a seat. We may drag you back up here again. We'll now go ahead and take public testimony. Is there anybody that wishes to testify? Please come forward. State your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Lori Davey, and I represent the South Golden View Rural Road Service Board. I've also served on the Hillside District Plan Community Advisory Committee. Mountain Air is a connection that's vital to the infrastructure of the entire South Golden View community. This road connection was identified in the sub-area transportation plan for the area in 2006, and it provides a plan to connect all the subdivisions together. We've had the tradition of building cul-de-sac roads without connections between subdivisions, and this is one of the areas that we have a document that if we follow, we'll be able to connect the roads all the way from Rabbit Creek to Potter Valley without intersecting Golden View. That's what's important about this road connection. As I found working in the Hillside District Plan, we found that up to 76% of the entire development for the Hillside area is going to happen on South Golden View. And we do not have the infrastructure to support that level of development. Most of our roads were the first bulldozer in. We don't have connectivity, we don't have proper road beds, and we've been working very, very hard for the last 10 years since I've been on this board to make a difference in that. And this is one of the ways that we're getting to that end. And I'm all for private property owners having the rights to develop their properties. But we need to be smart as a community on how we do it to ensure that we have the required infrastructure to support the development. We haven't done a very good job traditionally of correlating the requirements for the infrastructure with the development demands. Only a few years ago, we were way behind in getting the infrastructure in place to meet the onslaught of development. In March of 2006, I asked the Planning Board to require the road money to build this road connection prior to approving the plat for Shangri-La East. Beginning in 2007, I personally have been going to Juneau every year along with Suzanne Camellis, the past chair of the Rabbit Creek Community Council, asking for this money. We got the first $4.5 million in 2008, and last year the $1.4 million was vetoed. I've been back one time this year, and I'm going back again in a couple of weeks to ask again for the $1.4 million to complete this road. It's important that we have this road connection as an overall piece of the plan. Part of what you probably haven't seen is how this connects all the way across I'm not sure how to do, oh, here we go. This road connection will take us all the way from Rabbit Creek all the way to Potter Valley through incremental developments. Yes, today it will only go as far as Shangri-La, but from there, the development above Prominence Point is Views of Prominence. It will connect there next, and from there it will connect over to Mountainside Village Drive, actually down to Steamboat, and then across there's a road that will connect all the way across Potter Valley. This is a piece of a much larger infrastructure, and it wasn't necessarily our requirement to connect into Bear Valley. Our requirement for this was to connect to the rest of the neighborhoods up off of South Golden View. That was the primary driving force in this, and the reason I've been personally going to Juneau begging for this money for the last 4 years. That's the reason this road is here, is the community of South Golden View has made this their #1 priority. When I was in Representative Hawker's office a couple of years ago, he told me the fire chief said that this road connection would allow them to not have to build another fire department along South Golden View for many more years than they would have had to otherwise. The value of this road is far beyond just connecting into Bear Valley. It's all the way to the south, all the way over to Potter Valley, and it's a vital piece of the infrastructure for us. And I do understand that the Michaels family would like the road to go to Alternative B, but the reality is the funding for the public money is best served going the most direct route and getting the most bang for our buck. That's been the goal from the very beginning, from the sub-area transportation plan to the Hillside District plan, is to make these roads work in the most direct way we possibly can with the public money. If the Michaels family wants the road to go another route, I would really like them to see them come to the table with some money to fund the difference between Route A and Route B, because Route A is the one I've been fighting for and saying that it's the most direct possible route to get us the entire connectivity across the hillside. If we miss this connectivity, we're going to lose a lot of the ability to build the rest of it. All the other developments will connect in line, but if we miss this one, the whole plan will fall apart. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davey. Any questions for Ms. Davey? Mr. Parks.
I guess my question would be, would a Plan B that would service the land to the east and the land on that section line make a major difference in the connectivity to the Potter area?
Well, it may kill the funding. We don't have the money.
Okay, but if you look at the district plan that's there, it talks about emergency exits, coming in and developing it for connectivity for all of the hillside. It doesn't talk specifically about, I'm talking about the hillside plan. This doesn't talk about particularly Potter Marsh or Golden View. It talks about all of the hillside, upper and lower, that hillside area. And I guess my concern is that if you had a B or an A, would it make a difference? Take the funding piece out of it. Would it make a difference in the connectivity?
I believe that the connectivity to Bear Valley will still happen through the eventual developments, but in a better position to avoid the wetlands. Even if you went to to option B, there's still a very long ways to connect to Jamie. It's not, if you go Route B, you've got a connection to Jamie. That's not the case. There's other more direct routes. If you take through Shangri-La East, as they develop more to the west, there will be another opportunity at, it looks like Marin Street, that they'll have another opportunity to connect through there that's more efficient than Jamie is. I think through development over time, these connections will be made.
Any further questions for Ms. Davy? Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wish to testify? Is there anybody else that wishes to testify? Please come forward, sir, and state your name for the record.
My name is David Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L.
Okay, sir, who are you representing?
I'm representing as a trustee of trust land that is being held for my children.
Okay, you have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I have a prepared statement in the interest of time. Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, as a 60-year resident of the property affected by Mountain Air Drive, I speak as a concerned trustee of land held in trust for my children. I request that you reject the draft design study report before you recommending the yellow alternative A route in favor of the red alternative B route. The time for expansion has come and I support a road. However, A route's primary goal of reaching only one development seems short-sighted. There's no need or necessity to take private land when the Muni already owns the red B route. The latest DSR says the Shangri-La target will almost be reached via the A route or the B route. But 155th is not the northern Shangri-La border. The B route offers more immediate benefits: emergency access, taxable property, recreation trails, and Section 36 park frontage. B route achieves all of this and more, as well as future connectivity to adjacent neighborhoods. The A route must be purchased. Trails and the road are nowhere near the park. Essentially, the route reaches one private development. The platted B route becomes a spine for future connectivity to the east, west, and south. Route A only extends south. Cost is about equal or maybe a little less to reach the same point. Even considering building about 800 feet of 155th, about 2 blocks or the width of the Sears parking lot, the long A route bridge crosses a wide canyon, some 60 feet or so above the creek, and about $1 million could be saved from the big bridge alone, which eats up almost half of the actual construction budget. The B route has shorter, simpler, cheaper bridges. If 155th is ever vacated, as petitioned in 1992 by the Cange Vantage Point subdivision, trails on the south of the creek to Section 36 parkland could be cut off. The B route provides almost unobstructed paths from Rabbit Creek Road past the school to over 600 feet of park frontage and then west along 155th. Immediately usable paths and the road. Emergency access egress as well as recreational use will be better served, meeting the purpose of the Hillside District Plan and satisfying the state grants. Each route almost reaches the target, fulfilling the Muni's attempt to accommodate Shangri-La. The B route is Muni-owned, opens up more taxable land, emergency access egress, trails, with a more responsible use of public funds. immediate benefits are created, and important foundations for the future connectivity are laid. I respectfully urge the Commission to only approve a DSR that uses the alternative B route. Thank you.
Are there questions for Mr. Michael? Okay, thank you, sir. Currently, there's no questions.
Thank you.
Can I make this bigger? Increase the size. I want to, yeah, okay, not too much. Just raise your mouth. That way, focus. It's not going to focus. Yeah. Mr. Chairman, my name is Diane Holmes, and I've lived near Mountain Air for 35 years. I'd like to clarify a few points. There was a condition imposed in Shangri-La Phase 1 that said a second way out would be required for Phase 2. In fact, that condition was applied by the Planning Board in 2006 with a note that the connection to Rabbit Creek Road would be accomplished through a joint private-public effort. And given this area is outside of ARTSA, residents acquired the funds from Juneau and are going to continue to. It's very short-sighted for you to think that this collector benefits a developer or doesn't connect to Bear Valley or to many areas to the south. This just happens that Shangri-La was the first of many owners of the many thousands of acres to the south and to Bear Valley, which is meant to expedite traffic and fire trucks to a much larger area. The best thing that this city has done for us proactively for this area is the sub-area circulation transportation plan that was laid out the trail and road system for the 500 acres to the south and connection to Bear Valley, to avoid the usual piecemeal development that has been occurring. And this collector is a vital part of that, Mr. Parks. Now, I'd like to turn to intersections, although I'd be happy to talk more about this later if you want. The public made the consultant aware that there is an oversight in the RFP. And the Rabbit Creek Council comments highlight this. The school entrance, which unfortunately can't see very well, these cars are all lined up on Mountaineer Drive waiting to get into the school because there's not enough room for them in the parking lot. So, and then on this photo, the cars are trying to get out on Rabbit Creek Road. Unfortunately, the design does not appear to accommodate the school, and that needs to be done. I think everyone I've talked to says that we do not want a light on Rabbit Creek Road, and the reason is that there is a steep hill starting about Sierra Way, and I hope you'll find it on your map, and we do not need any more vehicles jackknifed up on icy days like happened down the road at Elmore and Rabbit Creek. What we do need is a roundabout, but DOT came late to this process and said that the traffic doesn't warrant it. Well, of course it doesn't warrant it now, but do we really have to have be short-sighted rather than be proactive, and then when we can build now when funds are available and there's only a couple $100,000 difference? Please approve a design that will be a collector to expedite traffic for the school as well, and pedestrians, and a roundabout. I may answer.
Please summarize, Ms. Holmes.
I'm done. If you care to ask me questions on Section 36, Mr. Parks, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions for Ms. Holmes? Mr. Parks.
I guess my question would be for you is that intersection is very important, is what I understand, in the design criteria.
Yes.
Do you have a concern about access to the park that's there, that section 36? Is that a concern that you have in that area?
Are you meaning here?
It's the park on that section line at 36. I'm not sure, I can't orient.
Here, this is the section line.
Right, the parkland at section.
I've been involved with the master plan for section 36 for over a year. That is not a primary access. It is in other places. I can tell you already there will be always legal access on section lines, okay? That's never a problem. There will be access along right in here when Mr. Michael develops these lots. There will be a road, and there will be a roadside trail, probably, right to this section line. People will be able to access that. That is not a problem.
So your major concern is the concern over the intersection at Hillside Drive?
That is one of my very main concerns, and the Rabbit Creek Council, I think, sent 2 comments to you. Unfortunately, they didn't all get in your packet, but were laid on the table tonight.
Right. We did receive those. One other quick question, then I'll let you go. When we talk about the connectivity of Hillside Drive, what is your concerns about connectivity?
To Hillside Drive?
To Hillside Drive, or any of the connectivity in the road district?
Well, the Hillside Sub-Area Transportation Study, which really should have been highlighted in your packet, that's a serious mistake, doesn't explain to you that these are 500 acres that this study designed with the developers. There's about 9 developers who own this property, and then it connects to Bear Valley. All here, and these are already developed. If you look here, you can see they're developed. Okay, and then it continues on below this that you can't see, and the Hillside District Plan talks about connectivity over to Potter Valley Road, not Potter Marsh. You may be confused, but Potter Valley eventually. But these are undeveloped acres now, and the collector, and that's why the Hillside Sub-Area Study was done, was to do it in a non-piecemeal fashion so that when these guys came in for development, they could connect, and they knew where their roads were going to go. And this is not just about one developer. It's about everyone around there.
Yeah, that's the concern I have, too, when I look at the plan, is making sure that we look for a long-term solution rather than a short-term solution in the way that we develop the hillside. I happen to live on Lower Hillside, on Abbott Road, but I'm fairly familiar with that, and what you have is a lot of dead-end cul-de-sacs with no connectivity, and you have to twist around through neighborhoods to get in and out of housing.
Perhaps I could give this to you, and I do not think that it will Xerox well, but I don't think that your packet shows you how all these different subdivisions that are yet to be built are going to tie in to this collector. In fact, they're all built together. I mean, they were designed in this plan, and it is very unfortunate that you did not have that highlighted in your packet, because this is extremely important.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Ms. Holmes? Ms. Holmes, I have one question for you. Which route is your preferred choice, B or A?
Well, I think you should read the community. I think you should read the community council's comments.
Any further questions for Ms. Holmes? Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wish to testify?
Good evening. My name is Judith Michael, and I am an owner of Tract A1, property affected by Mountaineer Drive proposal.
Go ahead. You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, I'm an owner of Tract A1, Block 8-1 and Block 8-1 at the corner of Rabbit Creek Road and Mountain Air Drive. The design study report before you tonight recommends building Mountain Air Drive using a route that is not in the best interest of sensible growth. Even though the A route and the B route will each affect my land at the same starting point right now, the B route meets not only current goals, but also becomes the benchmark for the future. I ask that the Commission reject the use of Alternative A for building Mountain Air Drive and approve only the B route. I am not against this road. Both routes can reach an intersection point where Shangri-La subdivision can connect. The DSR says the cost is essentially the same. However, Alternative A takes private land, limits future trail and road connectivity, and does not adequately address emergency access issues. In addition, proposed fixes for the intersection may actually make the problem worse. As a 40-year resident of this property, I have not just a financial interest in the way this project progresses, but I care about the long-term effects on all the surrounding area. The purpose of the $4.5 million and proposed $1.4 million grants for this project address primary concerns of connectivity for the purposes of emergency access, egress, and safety. Fire danger on the hillside is a serious concern. We need evacuation routes and to be able to get emergency vehicles to Section 36 and all properties along the way. This affects everyone south of Rabbit Creek Road, not only now, but for decades to come. The A route does not offer access needed right now to Section 36. Emergency and rescue efforts will get no relief from Route A. The intersection at Rabbit Creek Road is already a problem at peak times during the school day. And until development happens on the vacant properties, traffic impact on the intersection will probably not be significantly changed when the road is built. Proposed turn lanes might be adequate for the short term. However, the idea of moving the intersection 80 feet to the west will only make a bad problem worse. Approaching Mountain Air Drive, coming up Rabbit Creek Road, you can't even see the intersection now until you reach Snowflake Drive. The distance from Snowflake to Mountain Air is just over 400 feet. If you move the intersection, distance is about 320 feet, yet the minimum distance needed is supposedly 340 feet. There are similar problems approaching from the other direction. This is accidents just waiting to happen, and any pedestrian paths beside the turn lanes will be dangerous. Emergency access, trails to the school and park, immediate development, and future connectivity to adjacent communities, all part of the Hillside District Plan, are better accomplished by the B route. And the DSR seems to consider only reaching one development with little real vision for the demands that will be needed by our future generations. I urge you to accept only the B route as the recommendation of choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Is there any questions for Ms. Smith? Thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else that wishes to testify?
My name is Joe Michael. Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, I am the third generation of the Michael family, along with my wife and children. Living on my grandparents' homestead, I grew up on the land that Mountain Air Drive crosses. My grandparents put part of this property in a trust for my brother, sister, and me. I support building a road in this area, however, I do not support the A route recommendation. I urge this Commission to only approve a design following the B route, which is already platted. B route private land acquisition is minimal. Why spend money on right-of-way for the A route when the stated objectives can be achieved using the Muni-owned B route? The A route calls for a bridge across a 60-foot deep gorge, a structure that will be several hundred feet long. I wouldn't want my children walking or biking alone across something with a 60-foot drop. In addition to taking lots 2 and 3, lot number 4 will lose value because it will have a view of the bridge rather than the natural scenery. The B route requires less, if any, private land and has much shorter bridge crossings over shallow gullies for half the money. The dedicated natural drainage corridor from the school to the creek could be affected by the bridge or associated retaining walls. Trails. Paths are planned on both sides of Mountain Air. The B route allows essentially unobstructed access from Rabbit Creek Road to Section 36 Park. The A route paths come nowhere near the park, with no foreseeable plan to do so. Recreational access would be indefinitely delayed. Emergencies. Fire is a big concern on the hillside. Access and egress is limited at best. Route B will create a road to more land, including the Section 36 park. Future connections. Route B better sets the stage for connectivity to adjacent areas in all directions. The intersection. Since the A or B route extends to undeveloped acreage, demand at Rabbit Creek and Mountain Air probably will not increase for some time. We need to plan and fund for future traffic as development occurs. No design should be approved until the intersection is adequately addressed. I'm not sure the proposed turn lanes are well thought out. In conclusion, the A route apparently serves one development immediately and does not consider future connectivity as expansion occurs. The B route provides road and trail access for residential, recreational, and emergency needs right now, as well as planning for the future. And the Muni owns all of the B right-of-way. Why buy another route when one is already owned? Cost is about the same. Again, I respectfully ask that the Commission approve a plan that only follows the B route. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Michael? Mr. Parks? Push the button. No, you get mine. Good, Mr. Parks. Oh, you weren't? Okay. Mr. Pruse?
Yeah, where this bridge going over this gorge, is there any water flowing through that? Is it
Rabbit Creek,
Rabbit Creek?
I believe.
Is there any fish?
Negligible, if any. None that I've ever seen.
Okay, I'm just curious.
I've lived there all my life. I've never seen fish.
Okay.
Any further questions for Mr. Michael? Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that wishes to testify? Please. State your name for the record.
Sherry Ford with Anchorage Development and Construction. We are the ones that are putting in Shangri-La East. And as I'm looking at my plating board summary of action, we were told...
Could you please pull the mic down so I could hear you?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
That better?
Yeah.
We were given on our summary of action things that we had to complete before they would let us put in our subdivision. Not the first part, but the second part. And one of them, the reasons we had to help the municipality. We were required to help the municipality to get the funding from the state of Alaska, which we did. And we did have people that, with their own private money, went to Juneau and did all that they could. Lori Davy is one of them. And they did go. And they also, number A is provide a public use easement, which would provide access from Shangri-La East to the north boundary of Tract 1, which we are doing. Number B is enter into a subdivision agreement with the private development section for the construction of that portion of the North Road which lies within Tract 1, which extends from the proposed temporary turnaround as shown on the preliminary plat to the north boundary of Tract 1. The municipality to support and assist the permitting for the construction of this road. These are things that we were required to do. The development will support the municipality in the creation of a road improvement district and work with the municipality to bring the RID to a vote of the property owners. The funding to complete the design and construction for Mountain Air and Hillside Drive from Rabbit Creek Road to the north boundary of Tract 1, which is A. Shangri-La East shall occur prior to the recordation of any final plat. We've done everything that the city has asked us to do. And now then all of a sudden, there's all this A, B, and C. And which way do people want it to go? I could only see that there was one way for it to go. If they were going to do as they said, if we did what we did, they would meet us at our subdivision so that it would help not just Shangri-La, but the other people that are down on the other roads to have another way out, other than going to Golden View Drive and causing more traffic there. So I don't understand why that, that they're not, and if, we've had to spend a lot of money with the engineering to be able to go through these wetlands. We got all that done, and then Sarah Palin vetoed. And that was and then, so it's held us up. They told us we could go ahead and...
Please summarize, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Would you please summarize?
Yeah.
Have you completed your testimony?
Yeah,
Okay.
just the fact that, we've done all that we were supposed to do, and they're saying that they're supposed to meet our road.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dean, we have some questions here, please.
Through the chair, my question for you is, the road is going to end at 155th, correct?
No, it's supposed to meet our road at our property line. That's what this municipality summary of action is telling us, that they will meet our road. They're going to build a road to meet our road at the north boundary of Tract 1. That is E of the summary of action.
So we are quite a distance from the beginning on this map that we've been given. We are
Yeah.
actually quite a distance from Shangri-La.
And I really don't know why, because they knew where Shangri-La East finished.
Can you build a section line road, a road on the section line from Shangri-La to meet 155th and Hillside? Should that be an intersection?
At our cost?
You're getting a road all the way to Shangri-La almost.
Oh, we're building the road already. We would have done this a couple of years ago to our property line.
So I'm asking if you could build the road between your subdivision, Shangri-La, and on Hillside, build Hillside Road between Shangri-La subdivision and 155th on the section line.
Well, this is what they brought to us at the beginning, but we don't own that property, and you don't just go build a road across someone's property.
I know that. I was just...
In Hillside, and we were told by the water people that Hillside Drive is never going to happen up there.
Because of the wetlands?
The wetlands is, and we were told where to put ours because of the wetlands. And so, that's why we thought there was only one way across there.
Right. And I was on the plating board when all this happened.
Yeah.
And it was a hard decision. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am, I think we got some other questions for you here. Ms. Yoshimura.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Ford. I guess my question really is because I still don't really understand. Route A and Route B meet at the same point. So what is the difference to you as the developer of the subdivision as to whether this commission chooses Route A or Route B?
Because Route A is the only one that meets up with the road that we have already had designed.
You've designed this road?
Yes.
But you've not built the road, is that correct?
Well, it's, they let you go in and clear the land just so they can do their testing and all. And you can drive almost down to the end. But we were told that we had to have it right through here with the wetlands and all. And to be able, we've already lost a lot of our property to the wetlands.
Oh, okay. I'm still confused. You've cleared, grubbed, and surveyed a road that will meet at the point where Plan A and B is?
Mm-hmm.
Can you show me where on this map that is?
Oh. Yeah, this is changed a little bit, but this is the for A, but it's supposed to go from...
Ma'am, could you take the map over where we can hear you in the mic?
Yeah. Oops, sorry. Okay, yeah, they have it at 155th, but our tract of land is, this is B route. Yeah. See, this doesn't look like our new map because it's, we have to come down right through here.
Could I ask Ms. Davy to come forward and maybe she could assist
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yeah, I was going to say, that looks a little better.
Lori, could you answer the question?
What is the question again?
Well, the question is,
A.
as I understand it, Ms. Ford has cleared and grubbed and possibly surveyed and done some preliminary engineering for her development. And my question is, the A and B converge at the same point, so I'm trying to decide or find out why A assists her development more than Plan B since they meet at the same point. And I'm just confused, I guess, geographically.
Well, we don't own this property.
Right.
And it stops there at 155th. That's not what was in this. They said they were going to meet at Shangri-La. They were going to meet
Where is
here.
Shangri-La, I guess?
Right here. Right in here. This is Cange's property.
Well, how does either route meet Shangri-La?
Well, that's just it. You know, I don't know why that it stops right here, because that's not what they told us. They said
through
they
a public process, the road could be built, but Sherry Ford can't build a road on somebody else's property.
You don't go through somebody's property just building a road, but...
Well, you could build it if it were on the section line easement, going down to
no, the city wanted to buy it,
west.
wanted to do that, you know.
There's no section line easement here.
Right.
No. Down further, isn't there the continuation of the section line easement?
Well, it'd be all the way down here, all the way up
Yeah.
here.
Right. It doesn't, this is a section line easement here, would that not go to your property? Would that not go to Shangri-La?
This one?
With this,
No, there, yeah.
that's the Burnham property, isn't it?
Yeah, but up there, that's
Isn't that
Hillside
part of
Drive, and
Shangri-La?
that is all of this is Hillside Drive. That was what we were going to do first, and we were told there's no way. That
Why?
is Hillside Drive up here. That is not ever going to happen according to wetlands.
What kind of wetlands is it, I guess? Is it
Oh,
A or
what
B?
is the worst kind you can have? The kind
Well,
that you
none of them
cannot
are
build
very
anything
good,
on.
but some are developable and some are not.
It's undevelopable, totally. Hillside Drive, they said that is history.
Who said that?
The wetlands. There's two ladies, I don't know their names.
Sharon, can you help us here?
Was it a state agency who had told you that? Is that what you're referring to? Or a federal agency?
Corps of Engineers,
Corps of-
wetlands, people. But they came and they told us that Hillside Drive was
I
not
think
going to
maybe
happen.
someone else can answer this
The
question.
Corps of Engineers, it's Mary Lee.
There you go, that name. Yeah,
Is it
Mary
A or
Lee.
B?
Mm-hmm.
No, she's the one that's been saying all along that alternative A or an extension of...
Please get up to the mic so we can get you recorded.
She said alternative B or any sort of alignment on the Hillside Drive through those existing wetlands was non-negotiable.
Okay, so my question is, if Shangri-La is between point A and B where it intersects, and the Cange property is in between that.
Right.
Who builds that road to connect to your property?
I can tell you that when we... Go ahead.
We've been hamstrung pretty much since day one on we simply don't have enough money to do the project. And so when we basically stopped with what we originally tried to do was extend Mountain Air Drive from its existing terminus right there at the school entrance. And for the $4.5 million, we could get to 155th, and we could buy the right-of-way to Ms. Ford's property. So that
Through the Cange property?
Through the Cange property. But we wouldn't be able to actually construct that road. We simply didn't have enough money. So then last June, came the issue where they wanted to address the intersection as well, and that's when the additional $1.4 million initially came up, and now we found out we need a little more money in that, so we're trying to determine that based on what route we go, and then we'll ask the state again. But this is a grant, and as Ms. Davies mentioned, it's outside of ARTSA, so we can't simply, get any other money other than to ask for the state to fund this.
So I'm still confused between the Route A and Route B. I agree with all the comments about connectivity. I really prefer Route B because I think it serves the public interest better because of the park, Section 36, and I'm not sure what difference it makes if the right-of-way through the Cange property ultimately is going to connect to the same point. So can someone justify the different route for me?
Well, I think part of it is having a collector road that is direct and not circuitous. Option B is a very circuitous route to getting for a collector road is part of the issue. The other part, I think, comes down to funding. It's a lot more linear feet of road to build, and if we're already marginally capable of building the road that we have with the money that we're seeking, adding more mileage to the road isn't going to help matters.
Well, from a cost point of view, though, we've heard testimony that it's going to be about the same. So I happen to prefer a more circuitous route because I think it serves more parties, both publicly and privately. And I'm trying to determine, because as a fellow developer, I understand where Ms. Ford is coming from. If there's no difference, I guess what we're really talking about, as far as there's no harm to Shangri-La if it's A or B, and the cost is about the same, then whether it's longer or circuitous or more direct, if it accomplishes the Shangri-La purpose, I'm not sure. And Route B assists in the local homestead situation, then why is there an objection to B?
Well, three principal reasons. One is alternative B is the least favored route by the regulatory agencies, which is pretty significant in this case. There's two creek crossings, essentially, and there's the wetlands, and more importantly, there's the park to the east, which is not going to provide an access to any nearby developers. You're not going to be able to construct a road from that corner and extend it to the east, or in this case, the southeast, to where the existing development is. No developer is going to do that. And so is the private sector or the public sector going to come in again and extend that road? There's no developable property along this fork of the creek. That's one. Number two is, and I've heard Mr. Parks say, and I've heard every member of the Michael family say that alternative A only benefits one property owner. That's crazy. I mean, first one is the Michael family. This first section of the road all the way to Rabbit Creek is a positive thing to the Michael family. Both alternative A and B are. Alternative A also is a benefit to the Cange property. Alternative A is also a benefit to the Ford property. Alternative B, on the other hand, provides, basically you're developing you're developing frontage for one property owner. That's what you're accomplishing, and then you're going to have to fight the regulatory agencies. Then ultimately you'll get down into Cange property. But that's all it does. And I guess the third distinction is the costs for these two alternatives are not the same. Like we explained, alternative A, where the east-west section of alternative B is not included in our cost estimate. To construct that would be another $500,000 to $750,000. So there's a notable difference in cost, almost to the extent of 20%. That alternative B is more expensive to get to the same point as alternative A.
You know, it wouldn't surprise me if that bridge, if you had $400,000 or $500,000 of additional cost by the time you're done. You know, I'm sorry, I just really, you know, $400,000 or $500,000 on a $5 or $6 million project is a 10% overrun, and I can assure you that by the time you're done with alternative A, you'll have that cost overrun. So I can't go along with that one.
Okay, Mr. Cruz?
Wait, don't go anywhere. I've got a couple quick questions there. You brought up a couple points that or items that I didn't realize. For the Kange property, you made two statements. One, apparently in the $4.5 million, there is money to buy the right-of-way through the Kange property?
Correct. The Kange property south of 155th to the Cyril Ford property.
What percentage of the $4.5 million is that? How much?
For the property acquisition?
Yeah.
Probably about $75,000.
Okay. You say probably. What?
Well, we haven't started right-of-way negotiations or anything like that. So.
Well, then how do you know how much it is?
Well, that's our guess.
Oh, well.
It's called engineer's estimate. It's a design study report. We have to come up with some number.
And what Kange is it that owns this property? Is it Joe?
Leona.
Right.
Okay.
And you think you're going to buy that for $75,000?
And then Route A versus Route B, because I wasn't considering this track below Kange. To me, it looks like Route B, from looking at it, actually benefits that track more than Route A.
To the Kange tract?
Yes. The Route B, to me, benefits it more than Route A because obviously you're building more of an east-west and of 155th. Is that? So I'm confused about that statement, how Route A benefits Kange more than Route B.
No, my statement is that both of those routes benefit multiple developers. Not the statement that was made by several people was that alternative A only benefits one route.
And then finally, subject to, I guess, the Corps, who have been known to, change their mind from time to time on certain things based on mitigative efforts. What is your estimated cost, if you have done so, to continue where Hillside Drive, continue it south to intersect where on that track, or the Shangri-La right-of-way, or track? So I guess it would be continue south down Hillside to actually intercept for the developer, Ms. Ford. That right there. What would that cost to continue that?
I don't think we know the answer to that. I mean, we were told by the regulatory agencies we weren't going to be permitted to go that way, so we didn't look into that.
Well, it looks like it's actually less distance than the east-west route of B.
To get to the Shangri-La property?
Yes.
Oh, that's correct. But if
that was $400,000 or $500,000 for that.
But if the property owner, and correct me if I'm wrong, who we've been told is not able to get to that point, that is the proverbial road to nowhere.
I'm talking about the Hillside Drive.
Correct.
Isn't that a...
Look at it.
Yeah, isn't the right way there?
It's a section line easement. It doesn't necessarily mean you could build a road there.
Well, there's a property owner that wouldn't let you build on a road right away? Is that what you're saying?
No, there's the regulatory agencies.
That's another issue. I'm confused. I want to make sure I'm talking about property owner versus regulatory, state, federal, municipal. That's all different groups. So provided that they all the stars lined up with the regulatory agencies, it wouldn't be a stretch then to continue that road hillside south without going through the Canes property and buying that right away to Shangri-La.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Dean?
Through the chair, my question is of staff. I was wondering if you could tell me if there will be a road assessment charged to the lots 1 through 6 when the road goes in. Would there be an assessment to those lots?
Through the chair, Ms. Dean, I'm not certain answering your question, whether there would be an assessment or not.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions?
I guess I'd like to ask if there's someone in the audience that knows the answer to that question. Is there someone here who knows the answer to that question? The assessment question?
No. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions for?
Yeah. I mean, I have a request to speak. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let's go back to this wetlands issue and why you came to the conclusion that it was simply not going to be possible to utilize a right-of-way going over a particular wetland. I'm going to believe it's the highest level protection wetland. I'm going to believe that, from what you're saying, that somebody or a number of people inside the Corps said it's not going to be possible. Why did they come to that conclusion, and did they provide that in written form or verbal form?
The type, whatever the type it is, type 3 wetlands?
Please step up to the mic so we can hear you.
Well, one of the things, there evidently is a very extensive history on these surrounding properties, and I apologize, I don't think you can quite, well, actually you can. If you were to look right down here, you can see, this is one of two. Well, actually, you can't really quite see it. It's, it actually...
You can see better behind.
I can't see it.
No, Todd, they can see right here.
Okay. A long time ago, a property owner basically in the cover of darkness went in there and excavated a ditch from this big wetland area right here that extended to the northwest and outfalled into Little Camel Creek, or Little Rabbit Creek. And so that was kind of the impetus of why this has become a very sensitive area. It essentially began draining this wetland. Of course, that was the intent. It was a developer, and he wanted to drain the wetland so the property would magically become developable. And so there's been a very keen interest from the regulatory agencies to maintain and to keep this wetland in its current condition, or, and for that matter, make it better. So that was my understanding is what initially started that.
So one of these alignments would affect potentially the wetland area, and that's what you're trying to avoid.
What would these alignments do?
No, I mean, what I recall is a diagram that you showed us where the preferred alignment was going between wetlands as opposed to across wetlands.
Right.
Now, I guess the other alternative, I presume this alternative B, would cross the wetlands. Is that correct?
Correct. A portion of them.
Okay. Do you know what the position of the planning department is on this? Have you talked to the planning department about this particular issue in terms of wetlands?
Yeah, just other than, our original scoping meeting when they, expressed to us the sensitivity of the wetlands on that portion of the project area, so.
Okay. I guess the other question is that we really focused a lot on the individual aspects of design very locally. I've got to believe that when this was reviewed by the municipality, that they were looking at this project on a more comprehensive basis, and they were looking at it from the standpoint of providing connectivity to a larger area. And so I guess that's a presumption that I want to see if you can clarify. I mean, it's one thing for this commission to look at a design in a couple of hours and make a decision. It's another thing to have gone through a very careful design review at the engineering level and the planning level, and I want to know if, in fact, that level of review has actually occurred already inside the municipality.
Yes, it has, to a large degree. When we started this project, one of the first people we talked to during our conceptual design meetings was, at the time, it was Lance Wilbur, who was the traffic planning director. And Lance very much had an idea in mind on what he wanted to see here based on his intimate knowledge with the Hillside Transportation Plan. And that is reflected in Alternative A.
So it's correct to summarize then that that department was traffic engineering. It concurred with the design alignment as well as AMAS concurred in it. Who concurred in the alignment for the municipality besides Lance?
Lance was the principal driver, correct.
Okay.
Any further questions? Okay, fine. You may take your seats. Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to testify? Please come forward and state your name for the record, sir.
Joe Burnham, adjoining landowner to Mr. Ford. The folks that were promised by the municipality after being held up for 4 or 5 years now about getting that road, whether it's A or B, all the way through to their property. I think this thing, A and B, both ought to be thrown back to these guys and have them do a little bit more work on it. As far as I know to date, and I just asked Mr. Carey a moment ago, if they had ever gone back to the Corps and addressed directly with Corps staff the idea of bringing Hillside Drive down, hitting Jamie Drive, where that road could eventually be developed to the east and to the west at our common property corner there. I know as of the last Bear Valley Community Council meeting where they came and they said that we were going to do Route B, they hadn't asked, because I asked Mr. Carey at the end of that meeting if they had actually went to the Corps, because there's been quite a bit of change in Corps staff. And I know, I do a little bit of development up in Bear Valley. I own 320 acres up there on that hillside. That Corps staff has changed significantly. As staff evolves, as your board members evolve, people have different ideas about development and so forth. And I think that idea that can be readdressed successfully with that wetland at that common corner between 36, the Ford property, and my property. Any arterial route we get in there is going to benefit all of us. I think the B route is the better alternative, but I think actually the better alternative is to bring that road to Earl's property where it goes to A or B, but I think actually the B route and come through to Jamie Drive is the proper way to do it. I agree with Mr. Michaels on this issue. Also, way back before folks was engineers or anything, Clark's original road basically followed the route we're talking about going. It crossed that creek on 2 little bridges. The remnants of the bottom of the bridges are still down there. It came up right along, right up Jamie Drive, still continues across the bridge right there again at about midway of my property, and continued on up to the improved section of Jamie Drive that everybody's using now. So there's no reason in the world that the thing can't be constructed along the already dedicated right-of-way that the Michaels' father did some years ago versus buying right-of-way. And these guys are selling us a pickle and a poke here. They're telling you that they've got the money for the right-of-way, but they only got the money for the right-of-way up to the Gaines property. And I don't even think they got that. Because if you look at that port operation down there and the cost overruns that were involved in that thing, this bridge, there's no way in the world they're going to build a bridge for what they say they're going to build it for. I mean, it's just common sense. And common sense tells you that you can build a road with 2 fill culverts. A hell of a lot cheaper than you can build a 130-foot long bridge 60 or 90 feet in the air. I mean, you got to use a little bit of common sense here. And I'm really amazed, and I thank you folks for letting me have my time here, but I'm amazed at this board. You guys seem like you actually got some damn common sense up here for a change. It's with your questions, you're involved, you're engaged, and I really appreciate you, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Burnham. Is there any questions? Yes, Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Burnham, thank you for testifying. The question I have is, I hear you saying that if the commission chose to direct the staff to take it back to the agencies for further discussion, that would be your first preference. If, on the other hand, you had to make a decision tonight, which route of this particular section would you prefer? I heard a little bit of ambivalence in your comment.
Well, there's a little bit of ambivalence there because both of them, neither one of them do what the Fords were told they were going to do. If they were told if they moved this road over here, then the community would bring a road to them to meet them. And they went down, they got the funding. Lori Davis, those folks did a lot of effort, a lot of work, spent a lot of time putting the funds together. And if you approve either of these routes tonight, neither one of them are going to get to Ford's property. And it's through a private piece of property, and those properties up there are at least $100,000 an acre. I mean, come on, we got to have a little common sense here, even on this bad market. You're not going to go to Miss Gaines and buy that right-of-way through there for $75,000. It just ain't going to happen. So I can't support either one of them. I mean, I'd love to support them because I'd like to see the access. I need it too. Earl needs it. Well, everybody up there, Gaines needs it. We all need it, and the folks to the south. I mean, it's never going to be an arterial route where people in Potter Valley are going to drive that way, other than they want to go down through there and smoke a doobie and enjoy that hillside drive. They're going to go down the hill the fastest way they can, which is go to Golden View and get the hell off the mountain. You know, the other problem with this project here is where it's going to dump that traffic out on that school just at the break of a hill that we know glaciates at certain times of the year. The whole thing's just inadequate. You know, you're going to have a mess there at Bear Valley School. There's a mess there now. And it's going to be a lot worse if this thing's developed as it's planned. It's just poor, it's just poor planning all the way down the line. It needs to go on down behind that school and come out on the other side of that fire station beside Storch Park and intersect Clark's Road right there where the traffic can go north, and it'll completely alleviate most of the traffic going down and intersecting with Rabbit Creek and Golden View Drive. When you come off of Mountain Air Drive, you should go north. You shouldn't even be able to turn. There shouldn't be a left turn lane. Make them go down there, have to turn around if they want to go back down the hill that way. Because there's 3 more different arterial routes down off the mountain if you go to the north along Hillside Drive. And you could carry that traffic from our area down that way and then down into the city instead of it all going down Rabbit Creek Road. Because there's still going to be a bottleneck at Golden View and Rabbit Creek if all this development traffic comes off, hits Hillside Drive and Rabbit Creek View Drive right there at the school and turns left and goes down the hill. You're going to have the same bottleneck at that intersection. And that's what they're trying to alleviate. That's what the whole idea was trying to alleviate. And this plan just doesn't do it.
Okay, Mr. Parks. You have further question?
Follow-up question. If you know the area real well and the way it will ultimately build out probably better than most folks, what proportion of that whole area will, if either A or B is built, will use that avenue?
Directly there, 160, 200, 260, and 80, about 200 and, let's see, 160, 260, about 340 acres.
Which is what a proportion of the total? Of what you could totally build out the area. How much in the 20, 30 years down the road would be using A or B?
Well, right there in the immediate area to be about 340 acres of land left in our area to develop out. I'm on the property boundary with Rabbit Creek View and Rabbit Creek Heights. They're on my eastern border. Earl and what was Baker and Duff is this thing anyway. The bank's got it now. There's 100 acres there on my western boundary. Earl's got 80 left to develop out.
But in other words, I'm just getting a rough approximation.
About
A large proportion.
340 acres there will be directly impacted by this access road right here. There's, the whole area will be to the east and west. I've got another 40 acres to the southeast there that I haven't counted in here. And then
So a high proportion.
70. There's probably about 500 acres that will be impacted by this directly, and land that hasn't been developed yet, and then a few more acres of land that's been developed that hadn't been built out.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Parks.
I just have one quick question. I appreciate your candor and your attitude about looking for the good of the public, because I think that's where my mind is too, is to put a road that would service the most amount of people. In your knowledge of that land that is at that corner of 36th and Jamie Road, Section 36 and Jamie, would you consider that wetlands in what you know today?
No, sir. No, sir. I own that corner along with Earl Ford there, and there is a wetland there, and it's Class B wetland, by the way. It's a buildable wetland. And if we're going to build a damn bridge, if you want to build a bridge, to come across that wetland to the area up there between Earl and I to access through in there, then do what they did over there on the what's that road going over to the Muni's building there with Elmore. Do an elevated deal if you got to. It's cheaper than building what these guys are talking about building. It doesn't make any sense to build a bridge. I think the Corps of Engineers will permit the thing. I think it can be permitted because it's a buildable wetland. And even if you got with the Gange, with Leona, and came off that corner down just before you get to the intersection of Jamie, and brought that road over on a diagonal basis over to meet Earl's development there, where his road's dumping out right now, because you could stay completely out of the wetlands. You could circumvent the wetland by doing that. I don't have a picture of a map, but I mean, you can look at it and see it. You can follow around the Gange property. If you got to buy an easement from them, bring it around that B route around the edge of the Gange property and back to, what was Jamie and that section line easement there, and take it on down to Earl's property. But the thing also is, and I'm all for Earl developing up there. And the city, I was part and party to this stuff as it evolved, going through as a adjacent landowner. They said, you got to have an exit here. And they complied. They jumped through the hoops, they've paid for the engineering, they've done it, and they brought their road through there. Now they can move it back over the corner, that 6-1/2 doesn't other, but the daggone road should go to Earl's property line, wherever it goes at. I mean, I can't believe that these guys are coming up saying, well, we don't have enough money. Well, go back to Juneau. You need more money, go back to Juneau. Do what the city said it would do.
One other quick question. How long have you owned that property up there?
That piece there, I think I bought it in 96.
Thank you.
Mr. Cruz?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I go down Golden View and hit Rabbit Creek every morning.
Sure.
And I adjust my traffic or my time either before school or way after school, because it's actually a zoo. Every morning I leave the house and hit that intersection. So my question to you is that have they provided any traffic counts or potential traffic counts or studies for this intersection of Mountain Air and Rabbit Creek?
I haven't seen any. I don't know if they've done any or not. There was a transportation study done for the whole area. I don't remember if it was, I think it was a precursor to Earl's development there. I don't think Earl's development was factored into that transportation study, but it might have been. I may be wrong. I can't really remember, to be honest with you. But I don't know if they've done one or not. But I mean, it don't take a rocket scientist to drive up there in the morning and in the evening when them kids are getting out of school, and it bottlenecks right now, and it's only going to get worse. I mean, they've got to figure out something to do with that intersection there. And it's going to cost more, but I think they ought to bring it around behind the school and down beside Storch Park and stay completely away from the school and let the school traffic be of its own.
Have there been any accidents there, or I mean, where I go when I hit when I come on Golden View and I hit Rabbit Creek, I've seen a lot of accidents at that intersection from people trying to come out on the road during the school.
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
Well, you've got school traffic right now, but you compound it with all them homes that's going to be coming out of there.
I was just wondering if you, as a resident up there, if you've observed any accidents right now.
Not personally. I haven't lived up there in quite a while. I live out on Big Lake now, but it's been 7 or 8 years since I moved off the hillside. But there have been occasional accidents, but not, it's not like it's a big bottleneck where there's been a lot of accidents because everybody's slowing down to enter the school and whatnot. But unless they, I don't know what they're going to do. That roundabout thing might work. I mean, I'm not a traffic engineer, but there needs to be something done because a regular intersection with turning lanes ain't going to get it.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Burnham? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Anybody else that wishes to testify? Okay, why don't you guys just sit down here and then we can pop up. Okay, go ahead, sir. Place state your name for the
Mr.
record.
Chairman, I'm Dee High. I'm a civil engineer. I represent Anchorage Development and Construction. I've been involved in this project for Mr. Ford here since 2005. I'm quite familiar with the area. I had the opportunity to sit on a hillside district plan. So I kind of got a little bit better picture of some of the overall concerns that the city's had. But I'd like to point out here is I got here late, so I didn't hear all the questions that you may have previously asked. But relative to those alternatives, the option of coming down to the east there on option. Maps not up there, but option B and C, I'll try this from memory, became just an unbelievable, problem for us, for the regulatory agencies. This is not just the city, but EPA and the Corps of Engineers. The first year of my work on that thing dealt with meetings, many meetings with EPA was represented by Heather Dean. The Corps of Engineers was represented by Maureen McRae, who's now retired. And many departments in the municipality, public project management, engineering, traffic, watershed management, planning, we all sat in meeting after meeting. So what ended up happening is I came back to the planning board after a long discussion, and the option of coming up to the east at the northeast corner of Mr. Ford's property, which is in that alignment, was redone by the planning board and basically gave us the option of going to the north, because going through those Class B wetlands was basically, I don't want to repeat everything that was said, but basically we were told that was not going to happen, and in any way, shape, or form. Since that time, we have completed wetland studies. There are streams now classified up there. The Corps of Engineers has claimed jurisdiction over those streams. Alaska Department of Fish and Game, I currently have permits in front of those folks. This is streams further up even from what you guys were looking at crossing. I have permits currently in front of the Corps of Engineers and Alaska Department of Fish and Games to just cross the streams without any interference into the wetlands. And it's real hard for me to explain all the gyrations I've jumped through to try to make sure that we stayed out of all the wetlands up there. So the location that we come through, coming up to the north, at the center of that parcel for Mr. Ford, has been worked out in detail with all the agencies. To kind of help you with that concern, not only is there a cost factor in going back through the wetlands for Mr. Ford, but there's a lot of cost factors for virtually everybody along that route and trying to make that go. So, again, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Is there anything else, sir?
No.
Okay, fine. Mr. Phelps.
So I'm getting the impression that from your experience, an alignment that would go through those wetlands is just not going to work with the regulatory agencies. Is that the conclusion I'm coming to? Is that the conclusion you came to?
Yeah, in short answer, yes. I mean that wasn't reached easily. There was a time when the city stood up and told the Corps that was where it was going to go, and they put a pretty hard put their foot down pretty hard. The Corps fought back extremely hard on that. Yeah. We not only realigned our road here on the north boundary, but we realigned the road to the south boundary. And the whole purpose of this road was that, by the way, there is a traffic impact analysis done. specifically for this project, for Mountain Air, done at the time that they decided that something needed to be done up here, and which kind of generated the whole need to go down to Juneau and generate some funds, and the whole concept of Mountain Air being moved up the line for improvements. So we have connections as part of this project to the east to Mr. Burnham's property, to the south to that property that's no longer there, and also all the way up here to the north to make this connection onto Mountain Air and Rabbit Creek.
Thank you.
Okay, sir, could you spell your last name for us, please?
H-I-G-H.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. High? Okay, thank you, sir. Just a second before we get another person up there. We're going to take about a 5-minute break here, and then we'll continue with the testimony. So we're going to stand down right now. Please take your seats. I'm calling the Planning and Zoning Commission back to order, and we will continue our testimony on case 2010-076, the public hearing portion. So, who is the next person that would like to testify? Please state your name for the record.
My name is James Michael, and I've prepared a statement in the interest of good use of my time. Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, I was born on the property that is affected by Mountain Air Drive. My grandparents left me this legacy as part of their homestead. As the third generation who has lived on the land, I'm raising the fourth generation here now. In your packet is a letter I wrote to you outlining drawbacks with the recommendation of Alternative A. I again respectfully ask that you do not approve the use of Alternative A for this project. Alternative B should be the route that is used. I may be young, but I can see the benefits Alternative B presents today and for the future. I support growth and development. I support extending Mountain Air Drive, but the plan to build a road that unnecessarily takes private land to do it, when there is an equally good alternative that does not need to take private land, is just not one that I can support. An objective of this project is to make it easier for the Shangri-La subdivision to connect to Mountain Air Drive, but I submit that Alternative B also makes it possible for Shangri-La to connect to Mountain Air Drive without having to take my land. The Muni already owns the right-of-way. The plan using Alternative A features building a $2 million bridge over a canyon 60 feet deep. Lots 2, 3, and 4 are buildable view lots with creek frontage. The kind of homes that would be built here would typically be $500,000 houses or more. Taking 2 choice lots and devaluing others nearby by putting a huge bridge next door isn't in the best interest of retaining the quality of the neighborhood. It compromises the views, the natural drainage, and plans for immediately usable trails. The B route bridges would be $1 million cheaper. Pedestrian bike trails are planned for both sides of Mountain Air Drive. With Alternative B, you would be able to go all the way from Rabbit Creek Road to the parkland at Section 36, only crossing the driveways of the fire station and the school. Almost everyone living on the hillside is extremely aware of the high possibility of wildfire trapping us and blocking the way out. Alternative B will immediately provide access to Section 36 and all property along 155th to the intersection with the Shangri-La access. And Mountain Air Drive will form a spine of connectivity for developments to the east, west, and south. Alternative B will be an important way in or out for emergency vehicles, rescue, evacuation, and other disaster mitigation. In addition, the Mountain Air Rabbit Creek intersection must be better planned and funded before any approval is made. Again, I respectfully urge the Commission to reject the design study report as presented with its recommendations and approve only the alternative B route of choice. I thank you very much for your consideration and your time.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. Are there any questions? Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that wishes to testify?
My name is Ray Kynard, K-I-N-A-R-D. I don't live on this road, Mountain Air, but I live about a mile from it, and I have lived there for almost 30 years. And I would like to say I'm a member of the Rabbit Creek Community Council. I'm on the board, but I'm speaking now as a private citizen. I'm not representing the board. You do have a statement in the packet from the board. I would like to point out that development is, in fact, inevitable, and it's the way of the future. It always has been. So all we can do, as a previous speaker pointed out, was we've got to use some common sense here. And as you're finding out tonight, there's no right answer. There are a number of ways of looking at this, so I feel like I need to share my views. Number one, I guess what I'm doing is speaking for alternative A, and I want to tell you why. Maintenance is one of them. The shorter the road, the quicker it is to have the snow removed. The easier it is in the summer to grade the thing. It makes some sense to have a shorter road if you can get one. Number two, as Mr. Parks has pointed out a couple of times this evening, we should look to the future. We should look not next year, but decades in the future. And what we need is a collector road. This is a very large area that's undeveloped. And if you'll take a look at alternative B, it's curvy. It's not straighter. It doesn't look like a collector road should look. It will have driveways going to it, which is highly discouraged, at least for collector roads. Alternative A will probably have some of the same problems of driveway here and there, but it would make a straighter shot for the classic collector road. But I'm leading up to my third issue that I don't think has been addressed this evening, and that is health and safety. I was in an emergency situation several years ago when the fire department had to respond to my house, and it is a terrifying thing if the emergency trucks have to slow down because of road conditions. And after that was all over and everything was fine, I won't go into the story. I'll summarize, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that a straight road for fire, for ambulances, any emergency personnel or vehicles will have a much easier, much quicker way to get to your emergency. Curves, as a battalion chief told me, right turns, left turns, curvy roads, slow them down. Let's do the right thing and get the straighter road. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. Is there any questions? Ms. Yoshimura.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out to you and perhaps those that might not know this, I'm assuming that this is going to be to rural collector standards because this is in a R6 zone. Is that correct? Through the chair to staff.
Ms. Yoshimura, yes, is it going to be to rural collector standards? You're correct.
Right. And is it not true that in a rural collector status you can have driveways off of?
That you can?
Yes.
Yes, I believe that's true.
Okay. And then I have one other question, which has to do with slope. Do we know the grade for Route A?
I couldn't answer that question.
Can the
I can't, I've just been to the school on Mountain Air, so.
All right. Thank you very much.
Oh,
I
sorry.
appreciate that.
The grade coming across the bridge is about 1.5%. It's pretty flat.
Okay. Any other grade issues on A?
No, actually, it's surprisingly flat.
Okay. And what about B?
Coming down the hillside alignment to the creeks to cross them with culverts, there's a little bit more grade. I don't remember what the number
2,
is.
3?
I have the plans. I can look here, and if you have another question for him, I can find out.
But not significant?
I don't think so.
All right. Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Kennett? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else that wishes to testify?
I guess you need to hear from the Cange family. My name's Sean Cange. I'll keep it simple. I think you've heard enough. We agree that there needs to be access, but at this time we do not support the A alternate. That's it.
Okay, wait a second. Let's see if we've got any questions here. Mr. Pruse.
Yeah, could you tell me why you don't support A, or why you support, or do you support B, or any of the above, or?
Right now, we don't know how A affects our property, other than the design here on the page. I'm only loosely involved with this, so I'm limited information.
About route?
Just all of this in general.
Do you have a preference between A and B?
A, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, B.
Do you have a preference for B?
Yes.
Okay.
Any further questions? Mr. Phelps. Okay, very good. Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that wishes to testify? Oh, wait. Didn't push the button. Is there anybody else that wishes to testify? If you don't testify now, I'm going to close the hearing. Okay, the hearing is closed. The matter rests with the commission. There's a motion on the floor from Mr. Phelps, seconded by Ms. Dean.
Okay. What I propose as a motion is to postpone action on this item for 30 days. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, I did not receive the design study report, and it puts me in a difficult position to make a decision on this without having the information. And for a review of something similar to a design study report, it takes a little bit of time. So I think that I need to have additional time in order to be able to make a proper decision on this. But I think the larger issue here is that the Planning Commission operates as that entity inside the municipality that makes the decision on roads. I mean, it's not the municipality, it's actually us. And as far as I know, there's not really an appeal process. I suppose there is, but I've never heard of it. The point that I'm trying to make here is that we have different points of view on this particular issue. We have widely differing sets of information, and I think it would be wise for us to postpone action and gather additional information. So an aspect of my postponement request would be for the staff, and that would include all municipal staff, to prepare what's called an issue response summary that would deal with the issues that have been raised this evening. And there have been a wide range of issues. I mean, I've written some down, but I think that when you develop that analysis, you're going to have to do a fairly rigorous, fairly extensive analysis in order to answer all the questions that come up this evening. Now, I've written down some of the issues, but I don't think this is going to be a complete list. I would say that some of the issues you need to explore would be the intersection analysis at Rabbit Creek and Mountain Drive, cost aspects, wetland impacts, including going back to the Corps, talking to the Corps again, and finding out just how severe this problem is. Because the gentleman made the point that you can do an elevated structure, and that's true. And they actually have to permit something like that, is my understanding, because it's not taking any fill out, so they don't have jurisdiction. So I think you need to ask the question of, okay, if you don't allow a bridge crossing, can you put an elevated crossing in there? And I think the answer might be different. Certainly the question of feasibility between the various routes came up, and a gentleman actually proposed or described a completely different alternative, and I think that's inside the minutes. I can't describe it right now, but I think you need to address that particular issue as well. And I think that connectivity and the service to a larger area is an issue. I can recall when I was on the planning board, and maybe planning commission, dealing with this issue, and this particular project area was essential to making the whole thing work for that part of the hillside. And I don't think we're getting that completely analyzed in the way we need to have it taken care of. And then I think that we really need to get a sense that the municipality has gone through a rigorous review on this, and this is a recommendation from the municipality as a result of that review, that this is the, whatever the recommendation is, the proper recommendation for this project. So those are my considerations. Obviously, there are more, but I would recommend that we postpone action on this, require a issue response summary, and have it come back in 30 days.
Any further comments on Mr. Phelps' motion? Is there any objection to, Ms. Mahal?
I would like to add to Mr. Phelps a sort of realistic estimate and time frame for right-of-way acquisition for Alternative A.
Is that accepted as a sort of a friendly amendment to the requirements?
Yeah.
Okay. And Ms. Dean, do you have any objection, Ms.?
No, I'm fully expecting staff to identify other things to analyze as well, too. The listing that I gave was not meant to be a complete listing. It's just what I came up with quickly.
Okay. The Secretary needs a clarification here.
So when you made the motion to postpone, did you want, I thought the issues were just your statement supporting the postponement and what you wanted to see done. Were you considering that those issues were actually part of your motion to postpone?
No, those were not the issues. The motion is to postpone action on this for a period of 30 days. An aspect of that is during the interim period for the municipality to develop an issue response summary. And then the listing of issues are the listing of issues that I identified as part of this public hearing this evening, but that's not the exhaustive listing.
And I understood that. It's just that when Ms. Yoshimura posed that as a friendly amendment, I was trying to fit that into my perspective.
Yeah, that was not, the listing of issues was not really part of the motion. It was an example of the issues that should be covered.
I just wanted it to be clear. Thank you.
Mr. Parks?
I, too, could support that particular motion. I think it's important that we make the right decision with the right information and that all the commissioners have enough information to make a decision.
Any further comments? Is there any objection for postponing this 30 days while the municipality puts together issue response? No objection. That carries unanimously. So postpone our decision on this, postpone for 30 days. What, this thing? A long time ago, like the first time. So Yeah, well, I'll make sure. Staff, we need to make sure that all of us get a copy of this draft design study report.
Who is missing other than Mr. Phelps? Okay, so you need 3 copies? 4 copies?
Okay, let's get on to the next. While you ladies are setting up, we'll go ahead and just stand down for a couple of minutes here and stretch. I don't know. I don't need it.
With the, yeah, at that time. Mr. Cruz, thank you.
Next one? Okay, fine. Let's go ahead and take our seats, and we're reconvening. And this is case 2011-012. Applicant is Legacy LLC, represented by Dowell, and this is a conditional use permit for a nursing home. So if we could have the staff presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a straightforward case. It has not been controversial. The community has, in fact, welcomed the project. The Planning Division finds that all of the standards of approval, that is for the general standards of a conditional use permit, the specific standards for healthcare facilities, and the supplementary district regulations, all of the standards have been met. There's just 2 issues that make it worth, 2 issues to point out to the Commission, that 2 issues that might be a little bit different. First of all, on page 11, the department recommendation, there's a typo, a mistake. It says tract A11. It should say tract A12. The tract A11 is the property to the north that has the trailer court, the existing trailer court, the Mayflower trailer court, and so that's an error. And the same mistake is on the front page where it says location, and it lists the legal description. It says again tract A11. It should say tract A12. Condition number 4 on page 11, it reads, if DOT requires the driveway from Waldeck Addition number 3 subdivision tract A12 per plat 2010-086 to Boniface Parkway to be relocated to Waldeck Addition number 3 subdivision tract A11 per plat 2010-086, then the change may be administratively approved by planning. There's a discussion of what that condition is getting at on the bottom, the last paragraph of page 7. And essentially what it says is that DOT wants to have just one access for the 2 properties, the trailer court to the north and this nursing home with 8 cottages and the Commons building to the south. If the property to the north, were to redevelop into a medium or high density residential neighborhood, and then DOT would like to see a possible signal, or they would like there to be a shared access, and the petitioner has no objection to that. DOT really has the power here because they issue the right-of-way permit. The driveway permits. This is a state-owned road. So that condition, a lot of thought went into that condition number 4, and it allows the driveway to be moved without coming back to the commission, and that would save Legacy LLC from having to come back before you, the cost and the time when it's, they may not be the cause of the need for that driveway to be relocated. It may be the property to the north. So that change would be done, this condition is saying that the planning would make that administrative approval for the change in the driveway. And of course, planning would do it with traffic engineer, DOT, fire, and all the relevant agencies. So the Planning Division recommends approval for this proposed site plan and landscape plan, subject to conditions 1 through 16 on pages 11 and 12. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And the petitioner has also prepared a statement. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Phelps.
This is a question of clarification. It's on item 4 again. And so my interpretation of this particular stipulation is that it pertains only to the relocation of the driveway. It does not pertain to anything else. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for staff? I just have one question in reference at A12 on your department recommendations. It's 2 tracks, A11 and A12, right?
Mr. Chair, the department recommendation, where under the bold letters, department recommendation, page 11, it says tract A11 and A2-1. Now, there's an error in the first one. It shouldn't say A11. It should say A12.
Okay. But A21 is legitimate. A21 is a real, is okay.
Yeah,
okay. I thought somebody was dyslexic or something.
Yeah.
That's all.
And,
okay.
And for folks to see that, page 85, the second to last page of the packet shows the underlying plat, and you can, it'll make sense when you look at that.
Thank you. Ms. Yoshimura.
Well, I just have one clarification. On a conditional use permit for a nursing home facility that is going to house, I think, approximately 72 residents, there is no requirement for a secondary egress. Is that correct?
Ms. Yoshimura, I'd just say that this is the first phase of a multi-phased project, and this phase was specifically designed so that fire would be content with the number of cottages, the number of dwelling units, and the road as shown on page 3 of your packet, the site plan. Future phases there'll need to be a second access when there's more buildings. And the petitioner's representative can speak to this, but if you look on page 3, you'll see 2 stars on DeBar Road, and they say, it's hard to read, but it says potential future access. So DOT has looked extensly at this, so has traffic engineering, worked with the petitioner's representative. There have been several meetings to work out, to holistically plan the accesses to DeBar and to Boniface.
So fire is satisfied with this cul-de-sac?
Yes, they are.
And how long is this cul-de-sac?
I apologize. I don't know.
Maybe the petitioner will be able to answer. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Parks?
I only have one question, and that's when they expand this facility, will they have to come back to planning, or are we approving it into the future?
Thank you, Mr. Parks. This project will come before the Commission with each new phase as a major amendment to conditional use permit.
Thank you.
Mr. Bruce?
Thank you. Are the existing utilities, either on DeBar or Boniface, sufficient for the master plan for this property?
Yes, they are, Mr. Bruce.
Any further questions for staff? Okay, well, we'll go ahead and start the public hearing with a 10-minute presentation from the petitioner's representative.
Hello, I'm Michelle Ritter with Dow HKM. With me this evening is Tanya Hickok, also with Dow HKM, and Mr. John Hale and Mr. Jerry Hendrick with Providence to answer any technical or business-related questions. The site is located on the northeast corner of Boniface and DeBar, and it was replatted by the owner in 2010 and then was purchased by Providence. It is in the R3 zoning district. Hospitals and nursing facilities are an allowed conditional use in the R3 zoning. This specific location provides Providence with the opportunity to spread out their services within the Anchorage Bowl, as well as provides the residential setting that is in line with the residential nature of the extended care facility. This is a design-build project with Davis Contractors. The anticipated schedule is to break ground in this spring, and with occupancy in 2012. As Mr. McLaughlin discussed, we have been working with both DOT and MOA traffic on the access and the flexibility of the site being designed so that if future development to the north requires it, the access could be relocated further to the north as a shared access. As well, it was established that this will be a low-trip generator, and at this time only a TIA memo will be required, and Dow HKM is working to complete that. The cul-de-sac is just over about 700 feet, and and as far as that, we have gotten an exception from PM&E to waive the second access or egress at this time. And some of that has to do with an IFC condition that we fall under the square footage that would trigger that second egress. The project is going to consist of 8 cottages with 12 residential units in each cottage. There will be 3 nursing staff available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at each cottage. Each residential unit will have its own private bed and bathroom, and the cottage as a whole will have a commons area that will have a residential-style kitchen, group dining, living room, a den, and an outdoor patio. The Commons building will be designed to complement the residential feel of the cottages, and that will hold support services for the cottages, and that includes the administrative offices, outpatient physical therapy services, multipurpose room, chapel, commercial laundry, and bulk storage. If you turn to page 3 of your staff packet, I'd like to walk you through the site plan. As it's been discussed, access will be from Boniface. As you come into the site, you come to your right, there's going to be a large parking lot that will hold both visitor and staff parking, as well as the Commons building. As you continue along the cul-de-sac, there'll be each individual cottage. The site will also enjoy heated concrete sidewalks for safety for the pedestrian connections that lead from the cottages to the Commons building, as well out onto Boniface Parkway. The site has been designed with future development in mind, and that future development may include something like a transitional care facility or potentially additional cottages. Any future development will have to come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission as an amendment to the CUP. We have gone to the Northeast and Russian Jack Community Councils to present the project. Both councils voted in support of the project. We've read through the staff packet, and we accept all the COAs, and we'd just like to thank Mr. McLaughlin for his help for walking us, or getting us through the process. And I would like to reserve my time for rebuttal.
Okay, you got about 5 minutes and 51 seconds for rebuttal. Okay, Ms. Yoshimura, I saw you had...
Thank you for your presentation. My question is regarding this open space between the Commons building and the cottages that are to the east. Do you have something planned? Is that for additional cottages, or is that to remain an open space, or is that a potential building of some sort?
That could be a future development that's being determined at this time.
And would there be this future development, would this future development have to come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Yes,
for approval? Any
Yes.
vertical structure on this piece of property will have to come back to Planning and Zoning?
Yes. It would be an amendment to this CUP that we're asking for approval of.
Do you have plans? Do you have schematics for this area? I'm wondering why you didn't include them at this time.
Providence may be able to speak more to that.
My name is John Hale, Providence Health and Services, Alaska. To answer your question, we're going through a business planning process. This is the first stage of a replacement for the existing Providence Extended Care Facility. At this point, this is what we have been able to get approval through the Providence System Board for funding. We're currently working on a business plan for potential alternatives that, as Michelle indicated, could include a transitional care unit or could include the addition of more cottages on the site as community need and the availability of funding makes possible.
Thank you.
Mr. Parks?
I appreciate this project because I think it's something that we need in the city, and I think that's a great location for it. It's close to the hospital and close to the arterials, and our community is getting older. Can you explain to me what the cottages, I know they're going to replace something. Can you tell me what they're replacing so I can kind of get an idea, because I've not seen this cottage-type environment before. I've seen extended care, we've seen St. Elias, we've seen lots of those kind of things built in our city. What are these particular ones going to be?
Again, I think that Providence should answer this question.
I apologize that we don't have any interior view pictures, but to give you an idea, the existing Providence Extended Care Facility is about 40 years old. When we say it's of institutional design, meaning it has long hallways, relatively narrow. If you were to go into the facility today, you'd see they're congested with wheelchairs and equipment utilized in taking care of our residents. The existing facility has shared rooms, so there are 2 residents to a room and 4 residents to a half bath. So it's very much like a hospital-type environment, but with very little privacy. You're always sharing a room or space with other people. The cottage example is built more around a household-type model. In other words, there'll be 12 residents who are sharing one common building. Each will have their own private room and bathroom, but it will be much more of those 12 rooms being around a kitchen, hearth, and living area that those 12 residents share, as opposed to having their doorway out onto a long hallway that they then have to travel distances to get to the shared spaces in the facility.
Will they share a common meal area, or will it be catered food type thing?
There is a kitchen that is in each of the cottages, and their meals will be prepared in the cottage. So they'll have more of a home-like experience as opposed to, again, traveling down a long hallway to a place where a meal is then delivered from a central kitchen, as it is in the current extended care facility.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. McLaughlin, you're in the queue.
Yes, through the chair. Ms. Yoshimura, page 58 of the packet. Oh, and also to your earlier question, Ms. Yoshimura, page 22 is fire department's comments, or fire plan review's comments. The third point that they raise is that all the buildings will be within 150 feet of the fire truck access, and there will be fire hydrants located along the road.
And if I may add to that, the engineers have met with the fire department, and we have satisfied these concerns.
Okay, Mr. Wilson.
I just wondered what price range are you shooting for your customers? Just for my own personal benefit.
I think that's a Providence question.
I mean,
I think they're still taking reservations, too.
I'm getting there.
To answer your question, I do not know off the top of my head a price per room per month rate for this facility. I believe it will be comparable to the existing Providence Extended Care Facility. The majority of the residents in the existing facility are Medicaid funded. The existing Providence Extended Care operates at a significant loss at the moment, which is supported by Providence, and we anticipate that the new facility similarly will be operating at a loss, supported by Providence as part of our community services. We are hopeful that the new design will allow more efficiencies that will help us reduce, in some cases, some of that financial loss of operating the facility.
And what proportion of the market are you addressing? Are you a big player in the Anchorage?
For the Anchorage service area, we are the largest provider of this type of care.
But people are getting older, and there's going to be a growing market over time.
Yes, there's significant community need today, and we anticipate it will continue to grow in the future.
I just want to go into competition with you something. No, just kidding.
Okay, Mr. Bruce?
Thank you. Again, how many residents per unit?
12 per unit.
And looking at this design, where will the visitors park?
When you come in, there is a parking lot immediately to your right, and that will be for both staff and visitors. And I did forget to mention, as I was walking through the site plan, that each individual cottage will actually have its own individual parking, 1 handicap, and 2 parallel parking spaces in front for visitors.
Well, typically, in my travels of visiting folks in nursing homes on Sundays and in the wintertime, and it's snowy and it's cold, I'm looking at this, my first is that there's not enough in front for typically your peak visiting time, and then in the wintertime, that's a long distance, especially for Unit 7, for parking across from the common area. So I'm a little concerned about first parallel parking along the street, especially for emergency vehicles, which I would think, unfortunately happens time to time with the residents that are here. So I was just kind of curious of this design and the parking, especially with 12 residents in each unit in the close proximity, but yet there's no. I just see a parking issue.
Actually, Fire has looked at the width of the road, and it's designed for the maximum required width, as well as 10 feet for the parallel parking. So there is adequate width to the drive for both parallel parking and emergency vehicle services. And that is kind of one of the reasons why they're doing the heated sidewalks throughout the site to help with that connectivity in the wintertime months, to get the people who have to park in that first visitor parking to the cottages more easily.
So could you tell me what is the walking distance from the closest parking spot in your common area to via the sidewalk and the road to number 4?
I do not know the actual width of that.
It looks
My
like
assumption would be about 100 feet, if not more.
Well, this scale is way more than 100 feet. It more looks like 400
3
or
or
500 feet.
So 3 or 4.
So you don't think there will be an issue with Sunday afternoon with multiple guests showing up to see their relatives and friends, trying to parallel park as close as they can to each unit in the wintertime at 0 or minus 10 below, with an issue with parking on this road?
I honestly, that is a good point. And I'm not sure. I'm sorry. And we do meet the parking requirements.
It's just along the way away is what it is.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Pruz, I think that the petitioner made an attempt to not just, there's positive and negatives to providing parking. If you look on page 70 and 71, you can see that they've provided substantial landscaping. And I think when you read the application, it shows that the petitioner has designed this development with the quality of life in mind, trying to create a desirable environment and a desirable site plan, not one large parking lot. There's parking located around the Commons building. There's sufficient parking along the street. There is handicap parking in front of each cottage. The site meets the parking requirement, and the municipality's current parking requirement is well above what is required in other communities.
Respond to that. Well, I think it may meet the letter of the law, but if you have 12 residents and 7, if you got 36 folks and you have 36 visitors all at one time on a Sunday on units 6, 7, and 8, it's a mess. I just see that there's a potential, and especially if there is a future development along that same road that we don't know anything about. What is that going to do, and what impacts that's going to have? So we may agree to today, but then we retract for tomorrow. And I think it's a of course I assume the snow removal will go someplace other than on the roads. I don't see any place for that, and where that's going to be. Is it located someplace?
It is. I'm going to find the appendix for you. On page 81 of your staff packet, you'll find the site plan, which does identify the snow storage areas. And it is in the landscaped area, and it will not take the parking spaces.
Well, I will tell you that this is, I'm not against this project or anything. I just have a concern of someone that's, seen many of these and done and built many of these and actually, visited your facilities over the years. What happens,
right,
especially on Mother's Day, Father's Day, New Year's, 4th of July.
In Providence.
Those days, and I've been subject to parking at extended care out in the street 2 blocks down. And I know you can't plan for everything. Even the back parking lot, I guess it would be to the west, where you used to park your snow, that was full. And so when I saw this, that's a concern. I don't know if it needs to be addressed, but to me, it's a concern.
Well, I know that Providence will be providing a shuttle for its residents so that they can get to the Commons building. I am assuming that same shuttle could be used to take visitors if they needed to park in the overflow parking by the Commons building to their cottages as well. Is that?
My name is Jerry Hendrickson. I work with Providence. They are going to have shuttle vehicles that are going to be used primarily for staff and moving, going back from the Commons building to each of the cottages to support their services, but not likely for commuting visitors and stuff like that. The intent is, as we talked a little bit, the sidewalks are going to be heated to encourage ease of access from the Commons building to all of the cottages so that there is easier access to those facilities. There is parking on both sides of the road, so there is a little bit of parking close to the the cottages, but I understand your example that obviously there's quite a few residents, there's 12 in each cottage, and depending on the visitors, could it be a parking, that there's going to be a lot of cars. That's why the parking lot also near the Commons is so large, is to facilitate that. So.
Well, I can see where you put the parking lot to facilitate future expansion. I'm as lazy as everybody else, wants to get as closest, and it doesn't show. They will park in the cul-de-sac even though they're not supposed to, and they will block. You'll get the proverbial parking in the handicap when they're not supposed to, and I just again, that's the first thing that stood out, where the cars aren't parking anywhere near where the residents are, and so that's my comment.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Through the chair, Mr. Pruse, just a couple other points that I thought of. Your point's well taken. Land use review, the traffic department have not raised parking as an issue. We don't design parking lots for the peak use. They're designed for at the most 80% of that, or it's just we don't design for Mother's Day. And that's just part of good planning. Also, the commission will have another bite at this, or many. This is just the first phase. This project that you see before you is scheduled to start construction, in the spring, and all the buildings will be built just as you see them, and there are architectural drawings in here. Any changes, and there may be future changes, will come before the commission as a major amendment, and if parking seemed to be limited before, we would have evidence of that the next time that the commission reviews the phase 2 of this project. Also, anecdotally, until the death of my friend, I visited Horizon House and the place off of Azteca and Lake Otis. And it always surprised me how few people visited the homebound folks. So, anecdotally, I think that sufficient parking is provided.
Let me comment on that. Would a petitioner would it be an option to, in the future development area, put a temporary unpaid parking?
I would like to ask Providence that. I don't believe it will work with the design.
You're saying to put unpaid parking maybe in that open area?
Yeah, something there temporarily as an alternate, as an addition.
I guess currently right now it is set up to be the landscaping and a water collection area. So by putting the unpaid parking area, I think we partly compromise our drainage plan that we're anticipating for this site. But so I guess based on the plans, the future plans for that area, I'm thinking that an unpaved site or unpaved parking.
So future plans, then where would you put the additional parking required for the additional facilities?
I think that would be determined by what the future development is and where it is located.
Well, what we're showing here is that future development is in that area where you're talking about for your drainage and your landscaping.
Right, and we don't know what's going in the rest of the site at this moment.
Say, will it be a building?
I think one of the plans that we talked about were additional cottages actually going in that site on the other side of the road there.
I mean, that to me is really obviously what it would be, but well, they'd be closer parking, I guess, because they wouldn't have to walk quite as far as the other one. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Parks?
I have two quick questions for Providence, if I could. How long do you expect people to be in this facility? Is it a long-term facility?
Yes, it is a long-term care facility. I do not know off the top of my head today the average length of stay for residents in extended care, but
it's not like a St. Elias where they're in and out in 10, 25, 30 days.
No, that is not the intent.
Anything. That's question number one. Question number two is that do you expect them to come from the cottage to the Commons building to be visited, or do you encourage that the people will be visiting them in their, quote, room or their...
We would anticipate that they would be visiting in the cottage because of the home-like environment.
Okay. I, too, would have the same concern as Mr. Pruz. If that's... I have had the opportunity to visit with my parents in places like this, and parking is always an issue, even if you're in, the Sunshine Country in, Phoenix or Texas or someplace like that. I think you're making a huge mistake, whether it's required or not to put more visiting parking in there. I counted the parking spots on the plan, and I know it's not probably accurate, but I figured 56 parking spots, and you've got 72 people. I mean, you've got a lot of people, and I can tell you my experience is that if you visit daily, the last thing you want to do is have to walk 500 yards or 400 feet to visit your mother or your father in a place like that. So I know it meets, and I have commercial property, and I don't want any more parking I have to have because most of the time it's empty. But in this particular environment, I think you're short-minded if you're not looking at increasing the number of parking spots so that people can easily visit, because I think it will make an impact on the people. Thank you.
Any further questions for the petitioner's representative? Okay, well, you've got 5 minutes and... Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Although I share the concerns about parking, and I also appreciate the good work that Providence does in the community, my concern really is that this is a 26-acre site, and with such a large development, like a large parcel of property like this, and there aren't a lot of them available left within higher density areas, I'm really disappointed that we don't have more of a master plan. We could possibly see this 3 or 4 more times every time there's a new building added, and I'm sure, I would like to think that when this property was acquired, that there were some ideas that were passed around for and given consideration for the development of the entire 26 acres. And I really think that this parcel and the community and this commission is deserving of more of a master plan. There's been lots of discussion about future stages and all this sort of thing. I don't know if this property should be platted into different lots. I'm out of my area of expertise here as far as conditional uses are concerned. I only know that when you have a parcel this size, I'd like to know more about where future proposed buildings could be, the access points, additional parking, and I think it's a bit of a disservice to be presented with a partial plan for something that is of this magnitude as far as number of acreages, amount of acreages.
If I may just speak to that, originally we did submit this application with more of a master plan feel, but with very low detail, because as John stated, a lot of the building development is dependent on funding and needs. And so we were actually asked to come back and only ask for what it is that we knew we could develop in the immediate future. And so we tried to provide that other alternative and kind of say, well, this area could be future development. And so that's why you're only seeing kind of this one phase and what we know exactly that they do have funding to develop.
So were you asked by staff or Providence to pull back?
Actually, the planning department did suggest that we pull back because we didn't have the level of detail, and at best, they could only approve at a conceptual level.
And speaking for Providence, we would have liked to have been able to put together our entire business plan in one piece and be able to bring you something that could be a master site plan. It has been many years to get to this point through our internal processes to get a decision made. In the interest of recognizing construction is difficult in Alaska and we want to start moving forward as soon as possible, we brought forward what we could at this point. We're continuing to work on our business plan for what may additionally go on the site, but we don't have it at the moment, and we don't want to delay the possibility to start construction waiting for that to be determined.
Well, I appreciate that. There's a difference between a site plan and a business plan, and I certainly do understand, not from a nonprofit basis, but from a for-profit basis, the need to, or the realistic expectation that you are not going to have all of your funding in place. There would never be a master plan for anything if you had to have all your funding in place at the time that you submit it. But whether it was staff's doing or the petitioners, I am disappointed that we don't have more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Ms. Ritter? Okay, fine. You've got 5 minutes and 51 seconds for rebuttal, and I've got to go through the drill of seeing if anybody else wants to testify, so you can go ahead and take your seat for a little bit. Is there anybody else that would like to testify? I guess not. So, you've got 5 minutes and 51 seconds for rebuttal.
I would just like to thank all of you for listening to this project this evening, and we appreciate all of your comments and look forward to helping the Providence develop a really wonderful project in the Northeast community. Thank you.
Thank you. The public hearing is closed. The matter rests with the commission. I'll accept a positive motion. Ms. Dean and Mr. Parks. So, Ms. Dean, could you state your motion, please?
In the matter of 2011-012, I move to approve this conditional use permit along with the department recommendations on page 11 and 12. There is a typo in the first sentence of the department recommendations, and I missed exactly what that is, but except for that typo, I don't foresee any changes to the department recommendations.
Okay. And it's been seconded by Mr. Parks. I'd like to have some findings for this. I have some suggested findings. I'll start if anyone wants to add some. But I think we need to find that the conditional use standards for the healthcare facilities under AMC 2150-030 have been met. And those include the maximum lot coverage, yard requirements, whether there's a request for reasonable accommodations, which they did not ask for, and any authority to impose different conditions, which there is no additional requirements required from the planning department, and the fact that they have submitted all the required submittals. So they have, in fact, met the conditional use standards for a healthcare facility. I don't know, are there any other findings we want to put in here? Okay, is there any objection? That passes unanimously. Quick things before we adjourn. I want to remind everybody to get your financial disclosure statement done. I was a good boy and went over and did mine today. But it's about a 8 or 10 page thing, and you got to lay bare your life practically, so make sure we get it done. It's got to be done by the 15th. 15th of this month. Yeah, it's the 8th. Okay.
So I had a certain amount of confusion about this. It seemed that if everything was the same, all you had to do was say nothing's changed. Is that not correct?
No, that is not correct. Basically, what you have to do is fill a new one out every year and sign it, because they're dated 2009, 2010, 2011, da-da-da-da-da. Now, all I do is I copy mine from year to year, but you still have to submit a new one each year.
Does it go to the state, or does it go to the municipal?
It goes to the municipal clerk. Mm-hmm. It goes to the municipal clerk. No, if you read it, you got to read the small print down at the bottom. It says...
There's another form that's filing with the state, not filing with the municipality.
Wait a minute. Yeah, I've got it. I've got mine here somewhere here. It says... Anchorage office, it says to 2221 East Northern Lights Boulevard, or the Juneau office. Okay, where to file this statement? Above that, it says, Borough, Municipal, City official in Canada, file with City or Borough Clerk where you hold or seek office. Yeah, it says that on the last page. Last page, right under where you sign it. So just make a copy of it and get it over to the lady there. But it does go to our municipal clerk. And they'll start beating up on us if we don't have them in. So.
Actually, if you don't file it, you're in violation of your duties, and you legally cannot vote on a matter. And if you vote on a matter and you haven't filed your disclosure, the action can be disqualified.
Okay, and the okay, and the other thing, did anybody have any problems with Granicus tonight? Although it seemed I didn't see any lagging or anything like that. I just saw some people that didn't know which buttons to push. Okay, Mr. McLaughlin, do you have something you want to say?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. Please hang on to all of the information from the Mountain Air Drive case so that we don't have to resend it to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Stacy, Terry, very good. Any objection? I don't detect any objection. Let's go home.
My fingers aren't going that fast. Francis, don't
Good job. You're such an unruly bunch.
Man, that first case was goofy.
The more you ask, the more questions.